The quiet city playground lies empty under the dim evening sky. A hand holds a phone, displaying a rejection message for applicant Yu Hyanggi from RA Corporation, citing limited openings. Yu Hyanggi sits dejectedly on a swing, contemplating her repeated job application failures. Yu Hyanggi considers a less desirable work option with a conflicted expression. Yu Hyanggi refuses the thought of excessive work, surrounded by images of popular menu items and cute mascots. Yu Hyanggi looks up, questioning if her desires are too demanding as a book lays beside her. Yu Hyanggi gazes upwards, lost in thought after her emotional questioning. Yu Hyanggi intensely grips the swing, muttering her defiant question, "But what's so wrong with that?" Yu Hyanggi's foot lands on the ground as she reflects on her solitary journey to Seoul without parents. Yu Hyanggi pumps her legs, sending the swing soaring with energetic force. Yu Hyanggi swings high above the city, seemingly floating among the sparkling night sky. The playground is suddenly empty, as delicate petals drift downwards in a new, ethereal setting. A hand reaches out, surrounded by soft light and floating flower petals. Yu Hyanggi tumbles through a shower of petals, an expression of shock on her face. Yu Hyanggi's eyes widen in disbelief as she exclaims, "Wait a second." Still falling, Yu Hyanggi cries out in utter disbelief, "You've got to be kidding?" Yu Hyanggi's eyes close as the dreamlike sequence continues around her. A girl with long dark hair and traditional attire stands in a traditional courtyard, asking someone if they are okay. Yu Hyanggi, now with green hair and traditional clothing, mumbles dazedly, questioning if she has died. The traditionally dressed girl looks down, startled by Yu Hyanggi's sudden appearance and state. Yu Hyanggi, with flying green hair, lets out a loud cry as she reacts to the other girl. A jarring impact or intense moment is conveyed through a vivid red background and a sharp sound effect. Both girls scream at each other in a heated confrontation before collapsing to the ground. Yu Hyanggi clutches her head in pain as Chunhyang asks, "Hyangdan, are you okay?" Chunhyang, with a small scratch, looks on with concern, asking, "Are you okay?" Yu Hyanggi, frustrated, kneels and demands to know what Chunhyang said moments before. Chunhyang nervously repeats what she just said to Hyangdan. Yu Hyanggi's face, now monochrome, contorts in a silent scream as she processes the revelation. The scene transitions through a visual blur, shifting perspectives. The narrative introduces the traditional folktale Chunhyangga against a backdrop of ancient Korean art. The tale unfolds, showing Chunhyang and Mongryong falling in love, followed by images of trials they faced. A large, ominous hand reaches for a tiny figure of a woman, signaling potential danger or a fateful intervention. A man in traditional attire stands victorious in an open gate, with a horse emblem above him. The romantic tale culminates with Chunhyang and Mongryong's embrace, celebrated as a universally known story. Yu Hyanggi stares wide-eyed, realizing she's become a mere extra in the familiar folktale, Chunhyangga. A humble basket of potatoes sits, grounding the fantastical events in a new domestic reality. While peeling potatoes, Yu Hyanggi questions the absurdity of her transport into a folktale via a swing. Yu Hyanggi continues peeling potatoes, observing another girl in traditional clothes walking away in the background. An elderly woman with a warm smile and gentle eyes greets, surrounded by blooming flowers. Hyangdan cheerfully agrees to the older woman's command to stop peeling potatoes and approach her. An overhead view shows a traditional village setting, where a character inquires about a task. The older woman gives Chunhyang and Hyangdan a task, instructing them to buy bean sprouts from the market. Coins jingle as the girls receive money, excitedly planning to buy bean sprouts and delicious food with Chunhyang on the way. The older woman tells them to enjoy themselves, not worrying about food, to which Chunhyang and Hyangdan happily agree. Chunhyang beams, excitedly reminding Hyangdan that today is the grand market day. Chunhyang excitedly rushes Hyangdan to the grand market, mentioning traveling performers are also there, to which Hyangdan agrees. Hyangdan waves goodbye with a bright smile, announcing their departure. The vibrant market buzzes with the chattering sounds of numerous people and their activities. Chunhyang smiles, holding Hyangdan's hand, mentioning that Mongryong liked something. Hyangdan teases Chunhyang that she would eat all the food herself, even if Mongryong was present. Chunhyang, laughing, declares she would only allow Mongryong a single bite. Amidst a bustling crowd, the girls realize the performance is about to start and decide to hurry. The girls are shown in a chibi art style, first looking thoughtful, then suddenly having an idea. Chunhyang excitedly urges Hyangdan to hurry, suggesting they go to the market together. Hyanggi, still running, wonders if her surprising lack of fatigue is due to her new, younger body. Hyanggi, observing the lively market, asks Chunhyang what makes today so special. Hyanggi looks around the bustling market, noting that she hasn't seen some of these merchants before. Chunhyang smiles as she mentions overhearing people discuss a new magistrate. Hyanggi's eyes widen in utter shock at the mention of a new magistrate. She stumbles back in distress as a tall figure in a hat looms over her. The man in the hat comments on Hyanggi's boldness, while she apologizes nervously. A close-up reveals the man with long hair, red eyes, and a subtle smirk under his hat. Hyanggi stares up, looking confused at the man in the hat. The man with long hair and red eyes is shown in a full portrait, an enigmatic smile on his face. Hyanggi gazes around with a concerned expression as delicate petals drift downwards. Hyanggi exclaims that the man is drop-dead gorgeous, clearly enamored. An older man in a hat points forward with a stern expression, demanding to know the identity of the esteemed person. The man with the red eyes stands next to Hyanggi, who looks unimpressed, while the older man in a hat watches them in the distance. Hyanggi looks up at the man, contemplating whether she should do something. The stern older man shouts, his face distorted in anger. Hyanggi's face shows extreme distress and shock, visibly reacting to the word magistrate. Hyanggi looks distraught, questioning if the new magistrate could be Byeon Hakdo. Hyanggi looks up in bewildered distress as the man in the hat stares down at her, while Chunhyang calls out her name. Chunhyang, smiling, enthusiastically urges Hyangdan to hurry, as petals fall around them. Hyanggi realizes the dire situation, believing it's bad if the two characters meet, and worries about the story's progression. Hyanggi nervously holds out her hands, trying to prevent the man in the hat from approaching. The man in the hat looks down at Hyangdan as he begins to speak, then grabs her. Wish. The man in the hat pulls Hyangdan away, as an older man shouts, "My lord!" Dash! Hyanggi dashes back, looking frustrated, as an older man in traditional clothes observes her. Chunhyang, concerned, asks Hyanggi if something is wrong. Hyanggi cries out an apology as she rushes past a surprised man and the man in the hat. Thud! The girls fall to the ground, surrounded by onlookers, and someone exclaims they were startled. The man with the red eyes, the new magistrate, wonders aloud who the maiden was. The older man in the hat informs the magistrate that the maidens were Chunhyang and her maid Hyangdan. The scene transitions to a serene view of a sunrise over the mountains with distant trees. Hyanggi sits up in bed, sighing that she couldn't sleep at all. Hyanggi clutches her head, thinking that now knowing the magistrate is Byeon Hakdo, even his face looks terrible. Hyanggi lies in bed, lamenting that knowing the future isn't always a good thing. Hyanggi decides to talk to Chunhyang first, as a voice from another room loudly asserts their master's generosity. Crack. A hand clenches, and Hyanggi recognizes the voice. A man with stern features and long, dark hair is shown in a close-up, confirming the source of the voice. The man stands facing Chunhyang and another person, declaring that their shop is their family's lifeblood. The man, with an angry expression, demands they sell the house, offering money to live on. A woman protests that the offered price would be depleted in a single year, looking frustrated. The man suggests, with a cruel expression, that if they're worried about money, they could always become a concubine in a noble house. The two women recoil in disgust, their faces flushed, as the man implies they might have received favors from someone influential. Chunhyang, with an enraged expression, furiously tells the man to watch his tongue around her mother. The man reacts with shock as a door creaks shut. Chunhyang and her mother look on, startled by the man's aggressive demands. The man's face contorts in anger, seeming taken aback by Chunhyang's defiance. Hyanggi shouts in fury, her green hair flying as she confronts the man. Ahem, the man scolds, questioning how a little girl dares to raise her voice. Hyanggi responds that she is more like a dog than a girl, walking away. With a menacing expression, Hyanggi declares she has a habit of biting rude people. The man points, furiously questioning how Hyanggi plans to wed with such a demeanor. Chunhyang and her mother are utterly shocked as Hyanggi declares she plans to marry the neighbor's dog. Well, that's one way to avoid an arranged marriage. The man shouts in outrage, demanding a woman should be gentle and obedient, as Hyanggi snarls. Chunhyang wonders why the man insists on buying their shop, while a chibi Hyanggi kicks furiously in frustration. Chunhyang and her mother suspect the man's master is merely a swindler. Most surrounding shops have been sold, leaving theirs as the only one left, much to the girl's distress. Hyanggi stands, looking defiant, as petals drift around her. The scene transitions to a grand view of a traditional Korean city at sunset. A fist slams down, and Byeon Hakdo angrily questions why half of those summoned never showed up. Byeon Hakdo glares, frustrated by the lack of attendance. A man explains that everyone moved away, but Byeon Hakdo demands to know why. Byeon Hakdo is enraged that people fled his orders right after his appointment. Byeon Hakdo questions if discipline has crumbled because people are fleeing his orders. The older man nervously assures Byeon Hakdo that couldn't be the case. The older man explains that locals are only friendly to longtime community leaders they like. Titsk, Byeon Hakdo smirks, wondering what the problem is since he hasn't done anything yet. The older man explains that local elders are displeased the magistrate is unwed despite being past his coming of age. The older man suggests marrying a respected elder's daughter to improve the magistrate's standing. Chunhyang, whom the magistrate encountered earlier, is specified as the suitable person. Chunhyang's father was a previous, highly respected magistrate. Byeon Hakdo smirks, seemingly captivated as the older man praises Chunhyang's beauty. Byeon Hakdo frowns, dismissing the idea of a sudden marriage as nonsense. The older man nervously tries to reason with the magistrate, referencing scholarly virtues. The older man emphasizes that marriage and continuing the family line are key to virtue, noting the magistrate's unmarried status is a point of contention. Byeon Hakdo remains silent, contemplating the older man's words. Byeon Hakdo sighs, questioning why he must marry Chunhyang of all people. The older man sternly points, seemingly about to provide a strong reason. The older man lists increasingly ridiculous and numerous family obligations until Byeon Hakdo furiously yells, "Enough!" Byeon Hakdo acknowledges he understands the point, but still seems hesitant. Byeon Hakdo smirks, questioning how a respected man like Chunhyang's father could have a daughter with someone other than his wife. The older man awkwardly explains that noblemen comfort unfortunate women, implying Chunhyang's mother was a concubine. Byeon Hakdo dismisses the suggestion, questioning how marrying such a person would change anything. The older man bows, affirming his stance to the magistrate. The older man asserts that marrying Chunhyang would demonstrate Byeon Hakdo follows the teachings of the sages. A bustling market scene shows people and stalls, bustling with activity. Byeon Hakdo asks his attendants if word of his visit was sent ahead. The older man smiles, assuring the magistrate that everyone will come out barefoot to welcome him. Tusk, Byeon Hakdo states he has no intention of marrying, but gaining the Namwon citizens' trust is his priority. The older man suggests they depart, and they begin to walk away. Byeon Hakdo arrives, looking unimpressed by his new surroundings. A bright, sunlit view of a traditional Korean house and its peaceful surroundings. Byeon Hakdo learns the popular tavern is the most renowned in the area. Byeon Hakdo walks with the older man, a pensive expression on his face. The older man shouts loudly, demanding identification from those present. The older man assumes no one heard him and tries shouting for announcement again, as Byeon Hakdo observes. Hyanggi feigns surprise about the magistrate's arrival, with Chunhyang's mother beside her. Byeon Hakdo looks confused, seemingly recognizing Hyanggi from their previous encounter. Whistle, Byeon Hakdo arrives, stating he has finally met her. Hyanggi glares, verbally assaulting Byeon Hakdo and calling him a perverted bastard. Chunhyang's mother asks Hyanggi to clarify what she just said. Chunhyang's mother expresses concern, questioning if the new magistrate is dangerous. Hyanggi insists she saw the magistrate's face at the market and is absolutely certain of his identity. Hyanggi emphasizes that Byeon Hakdo's intense gaze on Chunhyang was far from a joke. Hyanggi dramatically recounts a terrifying vision of a roaring tiger while describing Byeon Hakdo's intense gaze. Chunhyang and her mother cower in fear, visibly terrified by Hyanggi's vivid description of the magistrate. Chunhyang, unaware of the peril, happily states that she has a fiancé. Yu Hyanggi looks utterly exasperated by Chunhyang's naive response. Yu Hyanggi questions if a high-ranking magistrate would care about Chunhyang having a fiancé. Chunhyang's mother expresses her wish for Chunhyang not to marry someone she doesn't want. Chunhyang's mother sighs, acknowledging their situation but wondering how they can possibly defy the magistrate's orders. Yu Hyanggi smirks, suggesting a simple plan to not directly obey his order. Snicker. Chunhyang looks surprised and confused, prompting Yu Hyanggi for more details. Yu Hyanggi laughs, announcing their plan to claim Chunhyang is bedridden with a cold. Ho ho! The older man furiously demands that the girl be brought to them immediately. Yu Hyanggi boldly asks if a servant couldn't convey the message instead of requiring the young miss. The older man tries to scold Yu Hyanggi, but Byeon Hakdo intervenes, telling him to step aside. Byeon Hakdo stares intently at Yu Hyanggi, having now stepped closer. Yu Hyanggi calls out Hyangdan's name, preparing for their next move. Byeon Hakdo questions how he can believe Yu Hyanggi, smirking slightly. Yu Hyanggi stands defiant, facing Byeon Hakdo, who looks down at her. Ha! Yu Hyanggi challenges Byeon Hakdo, asking what he intends to do if he doesn't believe her. Byeon Hakdo laughs, mockingly asking if someone who ran like a puppy needs delicate handling. Haha! Yu Hyanggi rejects being called a puppy, defending her demeanor while Byeon Hakdo sarcastically cuts her off. Yu Hyanggi points a finger, furiously demanding to know if Byeon Hakdo is calling their young lady a small, cute, and lovable puppy. Yu Hyanggi angrily condemns Byeon Hakdo, accusing him of harboring lecherous and frightening thoughts. Yu Hyanggi declares that their delicate young lady fell ill from his vile gaze. Byeon Hakdo is outraged, shouting that Yu Hyanggi is spouting nonsense. The image displays the production details and creators of the manhwa. Byeon Hakdo thinks Yu Hyanggi is lying, recalling that the two girls were running around excitedly at the market. Yu Hyanggi gestures, implying Byeon Hakdo should understand the deeper meaning behind her words. Achibi Yu Hyanggi dramatically cries, lamenting the plight of the young miss. Byeon Hakdo furiously shouts that he is being made a fool of, as the older man tries to calm his lord down. Byeon Hakdo vehemently demands to be released, refusing to listen to any more nonsense. The older man nervously suggests ending the visit for the day, trying to appease Byeon Hakdo. Byeon Hakdo orders his attendants to escort him out immediately, still demanding to be let go. Yu Hyanggi, unfazed, reminds Byeon Hakdo to watch his manners. Hyangdan responds in chibi form, looking distressed, while Yu Hyanggi stands casually. Chunhyang's mother questions if their defiance towards the magistrate is truly acceptable. Yu Hyanggi worriedly expresses her belief that Byeon Hakdo is a pervert fixated on Chunhyang. Yu Hyanggi turns and walks away, declaring she will go peel potatoes as a way to avoid the escalating situation. A demon-like figure, representing a best counter, shields a distressed Yu Hyanggi and another young girl from fiery attacks. Yu Hyanggi glares with an angry, determined expression. Byeon Hakdo and his attendants arrive at the house, loudly demanding someone come out. Byeon Hakdo smirks, noting that Chunhyang's 5-day cold excuse should be over by now. Byeon Hakdo displays an array of beautiful gifts he brought, confident Chunhyang will accept becoming the magistrate's wife. Whack! Chunhyang and her mother are startled as they hear Byeon Hakdo's arrival. Chunhyang's mother looks concerned, observing the magistrate and his entourage arriving. Yu Hyanggi sighs and tells Chunhyang's mother to stay put, preparing to handle the magistrate herself. Stomp! Stomp! Yu Hyanggi approaches Byeon Hakdo, confidently asking if he's there to see Chunhyang again. Yu Hyanggi stands ready to confront the magistrate, holding a cloth in her hands. The older man scolds Yu Hyanggi for daring to interfere in matters beyond her station. Byeon Hakdo instructs his attendants to inform Chunhyang that he has personally brought gifts for her. Yu Hyanggi feigns distress, covering her mouth and wondering what they should do about the young miss's supposed illness. Byeon Hakdo observes with a skeptical expression, remarking that Chunhyang's cold still hasn't gotten better. Ichibi Byeon Hakdo questions how a cold could last more than 5 days, while Ichibi Yu Hyanggi dramatically insists the young miss is as delicate as a wildflower. Arr! Byeon Hakdo furiously declares he's had enough of the games and demands Chunhyang be brought to him immediately. Retort. Yu Hyanggi defiantly states that, as a mere servant, she cannot forcibly bring out a sick superior. Yu Hyanggi's chibi form looks determined, while Byeon Hakdo's chibi form expresses surprised annoyance. Byeon Hakdo sighs in resignation, then asks if Yu Hyanggi supposes Chunhyang will be better in another 5 days. Yu Hyanggi gestures dismissively, stating she's a servant, not a doctor, and wouldn't know when Chunhyang would recover, leaving Byeon Hakdo speechless. Grrr. Byeon Hakdo looks to the side with a frustrated expression. Byeon Hakdo turns and walks away, a pensive look on his face. Byeon Hakdo continues to walk away, appearing to be deep in thought. Byeon Hakdo walks through a busy market with his attendants, contemplating the situation. Okay, I will read the text back to you. The scene shifts to a subtle visual of the top of Yu Hyanggi's head, indicating a moment of internal thought. Yu Hyanggi stares off with a serious, determined expression. The sky changes, reflecting a passage of time or a shift in the mood of the narrative. Yu Hyanggi stands with her arms crossed, accepting the situation with a resigned, "if you say so." Byeon Hakdo expresses uncertainty about when Mongryong will arrive, stating he must protect Chunhyang until then. The background shimmers with abstract lines, emphasizing Byeon Hakdo's resolve to protect Chunhyang. A stylized stained glass image depicts a man and a young girl holding hands, representing the ideal ending Byeon Hakdo believes Chunhyang deserves. Yu Hyanggi looks determined, clenching her fist. Byeon Hakdo confronts Yu Hyanggi, directly asking if Chunhyang is better today. Yu Hyanggi gleefully replies with a sparkling, "Nope," clearly enjoying her defiance. Whack! Byeon Hakdo's eyes narrow in understanding. Then he forces a smile, acknowledging their challenge. Whoosh! Byeon Hakdo turns to leave, announcing he will return in 3 days as Yu Hyanggi smirks knowingly. 3 days later, Byeon Hakdo asks about Chunhyang's condition, to which Yu Hyanggi replies her cold still hasn't gotten better. The next day, Byeon Hakdo once again inquires about Chunhyang, and Yu Hyanggi maintains that she is still sick. The day after that, Byeon Hakdo asks again, and Yu Hyanggi curtly confirms Chunhyang is still sick, highlighting the ongoing charade. Yu Hyanggi stirs a pot, seemingly preparing something, perhaps a new remedy. Yu Hyanggi looks annoyed, remarking that Byeon Hakdo has returned early in the morning again. Yu Hyanggi coyly gestures, maintaining her act that Chunhyang's cold is still persistent. Byeon Hakdo stands with his attendants, appearing to conclude that Chunhyang's illness must indeed be severe. Byeon Hakdo smiles chillingly, declaring that, as the magistrate, he cannot simply stand by while Chunhyang is sick. Yu Hyanggi looks surprised and steps back, asking what Byeon Hakdo plans to do. Yu Hyanggi looks utterly disgusted, as Byeon Hakdo cheerfully explains he asked a doctor how to treat colds and was told loach soup is quite effective. Byeon Hakdo beams with a smug, satisfied expression. Yu Hyanggi is speechless and disgusted, as Byeon Hakdo implies she can do this much for her beloved Chunhyang. Yu Hyanggi, Byeon Hakdo, and an attendant walk along a scenic stream, surrounded by rocks and trees, indicating a journey or passage of time. Byeon Hakdo smiles serenely, enjoying the breeze and feeling quite pleased with himself. One of his attendants worriedly asks if this is truly okay, as Byeon Hakdo glances back with a sharp, determined look. The attendant elaborates, noting that the valley's water must still be cold even in spring. Byeon Hakdo smirks, dismissing the concern and stating that he was fully aware of the conditions when he came. His 2 attendants react with confused silence, not understanding his intentions. In a cute chibi form, Byeon Hakdo declares that the arrogant fellow needs some cold water to come to his senses. An attendant nervously points out that if things go wrong, the person might catch a cold. With a sinister grin, Byeon Hakdo reveals his true intent. That's exactly what he wants, so the person who always uses colds as an excuse can finally learn what it's like to fear catching one. A maniacal chibi Byeon Hakdo cackles, declaring this will be a good learning opportunity, while his attendants look on in horror. Byeon Hakdo's expression becomes serious as he thinks to himself, but sitting by the stream with his attendants, he impatiently wonders why the person sent for fishing tools hasn't returned yet. Sniff. Byeon Hakdo suddenly catches a scent and mutters, "Damn it!" He grabs his head in frustration, shouting and demanding to know why he isn't back yet. A figure in the distance bows frantically, apologizing profusely. The figure's feet are shown as they explain they couldn't find what they were looking for. Splash, splash. Yu Hyanggi arrives with a fishing net and pole, cheerfully announcing it's time to get started. Byeon Hakdo smirks at her, commenting that he thought she had run away. Yu Hyanggi laughs off his suspicion, playing innocent as Byeon Hakdo looks on, annoyed. Yu Hyanggi pulls up her pant leg, announcing it's time to start fishing. Byeon Hakdo looks down from a high rock and instructs Yu Hyanggi to catch 30 loaches, then cheekily declares that the three of them, himself and his attendants, will also catch 30 each. One of his attendants questions why they have to participate. Byeon Hakdo turns, asking if they aren't in the same boat as him. With a menacing grin, he clarifies that the three of them will catch 30, implying Yu Hyanggi must catch the rest. While the attendants protest the unfairness, Yu Hyanggi asks Byeon Hakdo if the arrangement is okay with him. Stepping into the water, she simply says, of course. In a sparkling memory, Yu Hyanggi and Chunhyang declare that they can do anything for the lady. Byeon Hakdo looks down, questioning if she can really catch 30, to which she confidently replies, yes. He smirks, noting it will take a while for her to do it alone. Yu Hyanggi beams, agreeing with him while secretly thinking how annoying his smirking face is. As Yu Hyanggi holds up a flimsy net, a chibi Byeon Hakdo asks if she plans to catch loaches with just that, while she replies that she'll try, despite it being her first time. His eyes narrow as he turns away, telling her to do well on her own. Byeon Hakdo orders his men to get started, but as they all wade into the water, they look down in confusion. Swipe, his eyes widen in shock as he spots something in the water. Whoosh! A net sweeps through the water with impossible speed. Snap! Yu Hyanggi leaps into the air, wielding 2 badminton rackets like a pro. Smiling brightly, she inspects her catch. She looks down at the net, which is full of rocks, and wonders what happened. Byeon Hakdo turns, asking his men how they're doing. He sees one attendant struggling with a millstone, and the other sitting defeated in the water. Ha! He facepalms, muttering that he was a fool for trusting them. Chibi Byeon Hakdo sneezes from the cold, then sniffling, decides to see how that guy is doing. Gasp! He stares in utter disbelief, exclaiming, that's! He's shocked to see Yu Hyanggi masterfully swatting loaches out of the air with badminton rackets. A large pile of caught loaches lies on the ground. Yu Hyanggi proudly poses, announcing she caught them all, while Byeon Hakdo stands behind her, dumbfounded. Chibi Yu Hyanggi smugly thinks that if you're Korean, you've probably played badminton at least once. She happily skips away, musing that she must have caught over 30, leaving a speechless Byeon Hakdo behind. Byeon Hakdo stares blankly at the scene, wondering what he just witnessed as his attendants lie defeated in the river. Rustle, rustle. Chibi Yu Hyanggi happily gathers the flopping loaches into her basket. Shimmer. Announcing she's caught them all and is going to rest, Yu Hyanggi cheerfully runs off, leaving a trail of sparkles. While Byeon Hakdo's attendant struggles to even stand in the cold stream, Yu Hyanggi walks away with her net. Clenching his fist, Byeon Hakdo stares in disbelief, stammering, this. Yu Hyanggi triumphantly shouts that they'll be out soon, reassuring someone waiting on the shore. A delicious pot of loach soup is ready for dinner, perfectly seasoned and not too salty. Chunhyang and her mother are thrilled to eat, with the mother praising Hyangdan's incredible cooking skills. Yu Hyanggi smiles, proudly declaring that making the soup was a piece of cake. Her mother looks up from her bowl, asking if Yu Hyanggi didn't go with the magistrate today. While serving more soup, Yu Hyanggi confirms that she did go with him. With a menacing grin, Yu Hyanggi adds that as far as she knows, he got home very, very safely. Achoo! Elsewhere, a loud sneeze echoes from within a traditional Korean house. An attendant peeks into a room, calling out to the magistrate. He finds a miserable, sniffling Byeon Hakdo bundled in blankets and offers him some warm tea. Sick and furious, Byeon Hakdo glares, vowing that he won't let that brat get away with this. The attendant calmly advises that he needs to recover first before he can even think about revenge. He offers a cup of jujube tea, noting that it's good for colds. Byeon Hakdo sips the tea, complaining that his head aches and he doesn't know what to do. As he holds the cup, his eyes suddenly flash red with a startling realization. A sinister smile spreads across his face as he declares that his new plan will definitely work. An official reads a proclamation to Yu Hyanggi and Chunhyang, conveying their supposed deep gratitude for the magistrate's love for the people. The official then delivers an order for them to bring ginseng tea for a cold, leaving Yu Hyanggi annoyed and Chunhyang worried. He finishes by commanding that the tea must be brought by sunset. Yu Hyanggi asks the official why she should be sorry that he went into the cold water. Hup! The official leaps back, accusingly pointing at Yu Hyanggi for tricking the magistrate, but she feigns innocence. A worried Chibi Chunhyang looks on as the annoyed Chibi Yu Hyanggi sighs before a shared idea strikes them both. A montage of lavish gifts appears as a voice notes the recipient hasn't even fully recovered yet. Byeon Hakdo's attendant sighs in exasperation, wondering if they really have to go this far with the plan. Byeon Hakdo's mouth curls into a confident smile as he replies, "Of course." He strikes a pose on his bed, confidently asking if women aren't usually swayed by appearances. His attendant expresses doubt, questioning if a stubborn woman like Chunhyang would fall for it, which offends Byeon Hakdo. Byeon Hakdo smugly folds his arms, claiming there's a secret known only to popular men. The attendant dryly agrees, while a chibi version of him privately thinks that he still doesn't understand his master after 20 years of service. Another attendant suddenly announces a guest has arrived, interrupting their bizarre planning session. Byeon Hakdo quickly dismisses his attendant, who scurries away, leaving him to prepare for his visitor. The attendant gestures for the guest to enter the magistrate's residence. Hyanggi arrives with a bundle, observing that the magistrate's home is more modest than she imagined. A chibi version of her smugly thinks that, at the end of the day, a civil servant is still a civil servant. The attendant leads her down a corridor. The attendant silently worries about propriety, wondering if he should let a woman barge into the magistrate's room. Hyanggi pays him no mind and slides the door open, announcing her arrival. As she presents the ginseng tea, Byeon Hakdo greets her with a dismissive, "HMPH, you're here." Byeon Hakdo reveals himself, striking a seductive pose with a flower in his mouth, attempting to look charming. Utterly unimpressed, Hyanggi stares back with a deadpan expression, sarcastically muttering, "Irresistible." Believing his charm is working, Byeon Hakdo gazes at her with sparkling eyes and murmurs, "Chunhyang." Her face remains completely blank, revealing his efforts have failed entirely. Clink. The flower drops from Byeon Hakdo's mouth as he stares in horrified disbelief. Thrash enraged and humiliated, he throws a tantrum on his bed. Unfazed, Hyanggi kneels and states that she's only here because he ordered her to bring tea. Flush, hiding under his blanket, a flustered Byeon Hakdo clarifies that he meant Chunhyang, not her. Rustle. Hyanggi clutches her bundle, thinking his intentions are obvious and wondering if she should really play along with his act. She coolly states that besides, no one told Chunhyang to come either. Whoosh! Inside a private room, a frustrated Byeon Hakdo complains that no one does their job properly. As Hyangdan announces her departure, a tiny chibi version of herself giggles mischievously behind a pot. It's Byeon Hakdo, his red eyes glaring with startling intensity as he stops her from leaving. He commands her to sit back down, stating that he has some questions for her. She plops back down onto the floor, coolly agreeing to his command as you wish. Standing before a sword rack, he tells her to speak honestly, as they won't get anywhere with pretense. He directly asks why she is going to such lengths to interfere with his marriage to Chunhyang. Hyangdan calmly explains that Chunhyang already has someone she shares her heart with. PFFT. Byeon Hakdo scoffs, dismissing the explanation as a story he's already heard. He points out the uncertainty of her lover's future success, much to Hyangdan's clear annoyance. He argues that a daughter's true duty and joy is to marry into a good family and help her household. He then callously notes that despite her renowned father, Chunhyang is still just the daughter of a concubine. Dressed in his formal attire, he smugly asserts that a man like him is more than she could hope for. He frames his proposal as a benevolent offer, a chance at a glory others cannot provide. A bored chibi Hyangdan interrupts his speech to ask if he's finished, catching him completely off guard. Getting to her feet, Hyangdan says his argument is precisely her point. She challenges him to give that glory to someone who actually desires it, leaving him looking annoyed. With a sly look, she suggests that surely there are many people eager for the attention of such a magnificent magistrate. He scoffs in exasperation, calling himself a fool for trying to reason with a child. She retorts that Chunhyang is even younger than her, further agitating the fuming magistrate. His eyes narrow dangerously as he accuses her of snatching away her sister's grand opportunity. He argues that through marriage to him, Chunhyang's father would finally look after her. But Hyangdan cuts him off with a firm no. She turns her back and walks away, leaving him looking up at her, stunned. She fiercely declares that a father who only shows up for personal gain is worse than no father at all. He sneers, questioning her understanding of the duty between a parent and child. She shakes her head, agreeing that there is a duty between parent and child. She then asks what a child could possibly learn from a father who doesn't even uphold basic moral principles. As he reaches out, sputtering a protest, she takes another step away from him. Looking back, she states that marrying someone you don't love is no different than torture. She asks if he understands, leaving him completely speechless at her sharp rebuke. The scene shifts to Byeon Hakdo's office, where his attendant confirms that Hyangdan spoke very resolutely. Byeon Hakdo sits wearily at his desk, holding a brush as his attendant recounts the heated exchange. He remains silent, contemplating the report on her unwavering resolve. The attendant admits that she was so firm that he was left with nothing to say. He nervously urges the magistrate not to give up his pursuit here. He panics, imagining two devil-horned chibi Hyangdans spreading vicious rumors if Byeon Hakdo backs down. Byeon Hakdo clasps his hands, his eyes closed in thought, as he silently considers his next move. Changing topics, the attendant reports that this year's taxes from the nobles are only half the usual amount. The attendant clarifies that while government operations are unaffected for now, the situation is concerning. As his attendant complains about the nobles' excuses, an annoyed Byeon Hakdo silences him. His expression darkens with grim determination as he declares he has no intention of backing down either. A cruel idea forms in his mind as he admits he just needs to find a good method. Returning to the present, Byeon Hakdo and his entourage arrive at the tavern, announcing their entrance. TSK. The three women look up in unison, their expressions a mix of annoyance and surprise at his return. As the magistrate approaches, their mother nervously wonders what business he could have with them this time. Byeon Hakdo formally announces that he has come to give them the honor of serving their country. Mother asks what he means by doing my duty, as a tiny, enraged chibi Hyangdan fumes beside her. With a wicked grin, he reveals that a gathering of Namwon's nobles will be held soon. He declares his intent to entrust their tavern with the food for the gathering, leaving the three women stunned into horrified silence. Chunhyang's mother nervously objects that their tavern is only for commoners, but the magistrate's attendant insists it's the most famous place around. The attendant pompously declares they should be grateful for the honor of serving the nobility. Rush the mother eagerly accepts the task, while a deadpan Hyanggi watches her rush off. Swoosh, Hyanggi stops her mother, bluntly asking about payment and reminding them they need to make a living. Byeon Hakdo condescendingly assures them he will provide a budget and proper compensation. Rustle. Byeon Hakdo summons his clerk, who promptly answers the call. He calls for his clerk again, who stands ready and waiting. A red pouch, presumably containing the budget, is handed over. Pound. The women's eyes sparkle in anticipation, only for a hand to present a single measly coin. Hyanggi and Chunhyang stare in wide-eyed shock, completely dumbfounded by the insulting payment. Chunhyang's mother looks on in disbelief, hesitantly asking for clarification. Slam. She protests loudly, pointing out that 1 yang won't even cover a single sack of rice. Chunhyang tries to nervously defuse the situation, suggesting it's because they seem to have few customers. Byeon Hakdo coldly clarifies that they will be serving 14 people. As Hyanggi seethes, she and the mother erupt in disbelief, questioning if it's even possible. Their outrage echoes as they continue to protest the impossibly unfair demand. A furious chibi Hyanggi rages, demanding to know how she's meant to feed 14 people with 1 lousy nyang. With a condescending smirk, Byeon Hakdo tells her that's a problem for her to solve. Smirk. He dangles a generous reward if she succeeds, but Hyanggi meets his gaze with a challenging smirk of her own. As her mother worries about serving scholars on such a meager budget, Hyanggi's expression turns calculating. His attendant feebly justifies the low budget, mentioning that this year's taxes were low. The attendant sanctimoniously declares it's the people's duty to help the country in times of need. He encourages them to do a good job for the promised reward, a smug Byeon Hakdo looking on. Staring at the single coin in her palm, Hyanggi thoughtfully begins to state her terms. Clenching her fist, she asks what happens if they fail, earning a condescending chuckle from the magistrate. He smirks, coolly promising a punishment befitting any failure. Horrified by the threat, her mother can only ask, "What?" The mother begins to protest, but the three women slump in collective despair, defeated by the impossible terms. Gritting her teeth, Hyanggi declares she's had enough, as she and her family face the magistrate's group. Her composure finally shatters as she screams in pure outrage, "Isn't this too much?" Her furious shout hangs in the air, a raw accusation of the magistrate's blatant cruelty. Eek. While her outburst makes the attendant tremble, Byeon Hakdo remains completely unfazed. Byeon Hakdo raises a hand, silencing his startled attendant with a simple gesture. With a smug, world-weary expression, he dismisses her anger, stating, "That's just how the world works." Crack. He leans in, reminding her that there are other things she'd rather not do, like marriage. As her mother looks on worriedly, Hyanggi clenches her fist, agreeing that the situation is completely unfair. While her mother frets that the budget is too small, Hyanggi cuts her off with a determined, "I'll do it." A sly grin spreads across her face as she sarcastically agrees to obey the high and mighty magistrate's orders. She looks up at him with a challenging smile, asking what she gets if she actually succeeds. He looks down, annoyed, and repeats his promise to give her a reward befitting her efforts. Grinning slyly, she presses him for specifics, asking exactly what that reward will be. Shake! As he vaguely promises a reward, she grabs his arm, insisting that a simple reward isn't enough for such a difficult task. She argues that satisfying a group of high-minded scholars is a particularly important and difficult task. Staring him down, she declares that she deserves a reward that truly matches the importance of the task. Before everyone, she firmly states her need for a reward that reflects the monumental effort required. She holds her ground, a picture of absolute, unshakable confidence. A thin smile plays on his lips as he reluctantly concedes. Fine. While his men look on nervously, the magistrate agrees that if she does well, there's no reason not to grant her request. He declares to the women that he is a man of clear rewards and punishments. His expression darkens ominously as he warns them that there will be no middle ground. Looking overwhelmed, the green-haired woman agrees to think about what reward she wants. She wonders what to ask for, while a smug chibi Byeon Hakdo decides he will start thinking about her punishment instead. A defiant chibi version of the green-haired woman retorts that she'll be picturing his disappointed face. As chibi Byeon Hakdo accuses her of planning to trick him, she angrily tells him to reflect on his own actions. The two stand apart awkwardly, both utterly baffled by the situation. Ha! Byeon Hakdo covers his face in exasperation, while the green-haired woman looks on with a flat expression. Byeon Hakdo regains his composure, elegantly stating that he'll be waiting, while his attendant sweats nervously. With Chunhyang and her mother behind her, the green-haired woman defiantly tells him to do as he pleases. Byeon Hakdo gives her a sharp, red-eyed glare, as his attendant hastily tells his men it's time to leave. The three women stand in silence, watching the magistrate and his entourage depart. The green-haired woman turns to the blue-haired girl, calling her Hyangdan, and she answers, "Slap, slap." As their mother asks Hyangdan if she has a plan, Chunhyang panics, while Hyangdan scolds her for her reckless gamble. Hyangdan flashes a confident, slightly strained smile, insisting that they can figure something out. Her confidence immediately evaporates as she collapses onto a table in despair. Her mother leans over her, asking if she accepted the challenge just because she didn't want to lose, as Chunhyang watches worriedly. Hyangdan pops up with a sly, mischievous expression, simply saying, "This." Chunhyang and her mother cry out in panic. "Hyangdan!" Sitting alone on a bench, Hyangdan ponders their predicament and muses that a sandwich would be perfect. She then slumps over, realizing the critical flaw in her plan. There's no bread. Tap. Her eyes snap open with sudden, focused determination. Tap. Chunhyang runs towards her, waving and happily calling out, "Hyangdan!" Catching her breath, Chunhyang asks if she found a solution, while Hyangdan struggles to get up. Chunhyang's face falls as she explains that wheat flour is far too precious and a single nyang is not nearly enough. Hyangdan sighs in resignation, while an inner chibi version of herself screams in frustration about how common wheat flour was in modern times. She turns to a worried Chunhyang, helplessly asking what they should do now. Squeeze. A concerned Chunhyang nervously tugs on her own sleeve, calling out sis. Chunhyang hesitantly suggests that maybe she should go talk to the magistrate instead. A chibi Hyangdan looks on in wide-eyed shock at the suggestion. Hyangdan's eyes flash as she realizes the terrifying implication of Chunhyang meeting the magistrate alone, gasping, "Oh no, it's..." Believing she's the cause of their troubles, Chunhyang looks down sadly. She voices her hope that she might be able to persuade him, leaving Hyangdan stunned by her sister's naive self-sacrifice. Grab. Hyangdan quickly grabs Chunhyang to stop her. She firmly places a hand on Chunhyang's shoulder, reassuring her not to worry. With a confident sparkle in her eye, Hyangdan declares that she will take care of everything. Touched and relieved, Chunhyang covers her mouth and whispers, "Sis!" Hyangdan turns with a bright, encouraging smile, calling out to Chunhyang. Chunhyang beams back with a huge, happy smile, calling her, "Hyangdan sis!" The two share a joyful, spinning hug, celebrating their renewed bond. Their mother looks on from a distance, confusedly asking what they're doing. The scene shifts to a bustling, crowded marketplace as people go about their day. Walking through the market, Hyangdan worriedly notes that the day of the event is fast approaching. Flipping their single coin, she wonders aloud what they can possibly do with so little money. Hyangdan considers a risky idea, using their own money to prepare a feast and win the 50 nyang prize. A cheerful chibi Chunhyang gets her sister's attention, asking about something she spotted. Hyangdan turns around, asking what she found. Chunhyang excitedly points to a stall, suggesting they make mayakwa. The stall is filled with various traditional sweets, including the ribbon-shaped fried cookies known as maijakwa. Hyangdan stares at the sweets, seriously considering the idea. Chunhyang eagerly explains that maijakwa is inexpensive to make, making it a perfect choice for their budget. Stroking her chin, Hyangdan thoughtfully questions whether the picky nobles would be satisfied with such a simple treat. Chunhyang thoughtfully agrees, noting that the nobles are probably used to eating more unique and rare foods. Wait. A sudden idea strikes Hyangdan, her eyes widening in realization. Her mind races, struck by a moment of what she calls a miraculous logic. Grin. A sly smile spreads across Hyangdan's face as she declares, "That's it," leaving confused Chunhyang to ask, "Huh?" Hyangdan confidently turns to her sister, announcing that she now has an idea of what to prepare. Beaming with hope, Chunhyang asks if her sister has come up with a good idea. Grab. She clasps Chunhyang's hand, excitedly confirming, "Yeah!" As they walk, Hyangdan reasons that they can't serve ordinary food to such picky noblemen. She adds with a knowing smile that the nobles will be actively looking for any reason to find fault. Chunhyang looks worried, hesitantly asking if that's really true. Hyangdan unveils her plan over a view of the market. They'll serve food the nobles don't know, so they have no basis for complaint. Chunhyang voices her doubt, wondering if there is truly any food that a nobleman wouldn't recognize. Halt. Hyangdan grabs her sister from behind with a wild grin, enthusiastically declaring that of course there is. The scene shifts to a market stall filled with fresh and dried fish. Standing before the stall, Hyangdan proclaims that the world is vast. With two cute animal spirits cheering her on, she confidently finishes her thought. And there's a lot of food. A wooden spoon scrapes across a pot, stirring rice with a scrape sound, continuing the cooking preparations. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, stirs the pot, looking visibly concerned about the process. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, calls out to her sister from inside the kitchen, believing the roasting is going well. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, urges Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, to move faster to check the cooking. Chibi Hyangdan and Chunhyang observe the cooking, with Chunhyang noting the dark color and Hyangdan appearing thoughtful. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, declares the dish is still not enough, motioning with her hand, while Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, looks weary as she continues stirring. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, walks away, instructing Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, to roast the dish further. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, looks deeply distressed and admits she truly doesn't understand the cooking process. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, laments that the banquet is near, and she has nothing resembling food, with a crunch sound implying despair. A hand delicately sprinkles a final ingredient onto the food. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, carries the now very dark dish, remarking that it's really black. A close-up on Chunhyang's hanbok shows her gracefully moving. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, playfully asks Chunhyang if she thinks it's ready. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, places the tray down with jakbok and tak sounds, insisting that any more roasting will turn it into charcoal. A hand picks up a small, roasted piece from the tray with a suk sound. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, tastes the roasted piece, her expression thoughtful. Chibi Hyangdan contemplates more roasting, while a chibi Chunhyang gasps in disbelief, questioning more. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, laughs and admits she was just kidding, stating the dish is finally enough, much to a relieved Chunhyang's surprise. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, leans on the table, sighing in immense relief. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, gently brushes something with a suk sound, telling Chunhyang that good food requires patience. A chibi Chunhyang peeks over, accusing Hyangdan of idleness, to which Hyangdan replies, "Me?" Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, proudly reveals she was making seaweed chips, stunning Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, into wide-eyed shock. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smiles, affirming that seaweed chips are a great idea, as Chunhyang looks at her with admiration. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, considers something deeply. A basket full of crispy seaweed chips awaits, with an instruction to dry and then fry them. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, looks surprised and attentive, resting her chin on her hands. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, confidently declares that once someone tastes her cooking, they will crave more. A chibi Chunhyang, with sparkling eyes, eagerly asks if she can try some of the food now. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, sternly tells Chunhyang that she cannot have any now but will get freshly fried ones tomorrow, making a swish sound as she stirs. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, looks worried and asks if seaweed alone will be enough. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smiles widely, reassuring Chunhyang that she has prepared many other amazing things. A peaceful sky is depicted with soft clouds, while distant sizzle sounds indicate cooking in progress. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, and Chunhyang's mother, the gray-haired woman, are in the kitchen, and Chunhyang asks Hyangdan if everything she requested is ready. Chunhyang's mother, the gray-haired woman, smiles with a hint of worry, acknowledging Chunhyang's statement. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, confidently declares everything is fine, while Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, looks slightly surprised. A close-up of Chunhyang's eye shows a sweat drop as she internally comments on the situation. Manhwa pastries sizzle in oil, and a thought bubble asks if it isn't just a normal manhwa, while another text bubble says, "Oh, I'm single." Chunhyang's mother, the gray-haired woman, acknowledges that manhwa is familiar and tasty, but her expression suggests reservations. Chunhyang's mother, the gray-haired woman, questions if manhwa isn't too common a snack for noblemen. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, grabs a cooking tool and smiles, proudly proclaiming that this is no ordinary manhwa. Hyangdan is shown stirring manhwa in rice syrup, explaining that this is not how it's usually prepared, while Chunhyang wonders what Hyangdan does on her days off. Chibi versions of Chunhyang and Chunhyang's mother watch, as Hyangdan states this is the final step. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman with sparkling, determined eyes, exclaims "uh-oh" and insists she wouldn't have gone to such effort if it were the same as ordinary manhwa. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, with a slight heave of the pot, announces to Chunhyang and Chunhyang's mother that they are going to simmer the dish overnight with a clatter. Chunhyang's mother, the gray-haired woman, expresses concern that simmering overnight will make the dish too sweet. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, cheerfully reassures Chunhyang's mother not to worry, making a peace sign. Hyangdan explains they will let the fire die out naturally overnight for the simmering process. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, realizes the plan, clapping her hands in understanding. Chunhyang's mother, the gray-haired woman, agrees, understanding that the rice syrup will become more flavorful as Hyangdan looks pleased. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, excitedly announces she has another secret. Hyangdan confidently tells Chunhyang and Chunhyang's mother that they possess a secret weapon. A large rock rests on stacked papers, representing the secret weapon that will silence even the magistrate. Chibi versions of Hyangdan, Chunhyang's mother, and Chunhyang enthusiastically agree to prepare everything by tomorrow. A grand traditional building stands under a deep blue night sky, indicating the passage of time. A foot in a white shoe lands with a distinct thud sound, signaling an arrival or quick movement. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, Chunhyang's mother, the gray-haired woman, and Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, arrive at their destination carrying numerous bags and announcing their presence. The light gray-haired man with dark blue hair and red eyes looks intensely determined, certain of his success. The light gray-haired man emphatically affirms his conviction, confirming his previous thought. The light gray-haired man smirks confidently with an audible SSIIK sound. A close-up of Hyangdan's mouth shows her gasping in shock with a sound, reacting to an unexpected event. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, burdened with bags, energetically shouts for someone to come in. The light gray-haired man rests peacefully on a bed in a traditional room, covered in white garments. A close-up reveals the light gray-haired man's serene face as he sleeps. The light gray-haired man jolts awake, his red eyes wide with alarm, as a loud voice commands, "Come in." The light gray-haired man sits up abruptly, looking utterly surprised and questioning what is happening. The light gray-haired man stares, dumbfounded with wide, red eyes, still processing the sudden disturbance. The light gray-haired man remains seated and confused, asking again what is going on. The scene shifts to a serene traditional building, surrounded by lush, green gardens under a clear sky. Filtering sunlight accompanies a thought about someone being well-versed in scholarly pursuits. The men consider a figure at a distant gate, thinking such a person would be a good fit for their namwon. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, observes the distant traditional buildings and figures in the garden from a doorway. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks startled as the light brown-haired man playfully leans in and asks if she is worried. Swish! Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, responds yes sir to the light brown-haired man. A close-up shows Hyangdan's lower body in traditional white and brown attire. The light brown-haired man asks Hyangdan if she wants to back out and to tell him now, while she looks at him with a smirk and asks, yes? The light brown-haired man with red eyes smiles slyly, his finger touching his chin. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smiles widely. a slight angry mark on her cheek. The light brown-haired man looks shocked and distraught as he hears a male voice from off-panel declare he has preparations to make. Tap tap. 2 pairs of legs, one in brown and one in black and red, walk across the green ground. The light brown-haired man looks on with a smile as Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, confidently states she prepared everything perfectly and will not give up. The light brown-haired man with red eyes smiles cunningly, asking Hyangdan why she is being so stubborn. Ha! Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks distressed, asserting that it's not stubbornness. A close-up shot focuses on the collar of Hyangdan's traditional white dress. A pair of feet in traditional white shoes stands on the green ground. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, angrily asks the light brown-haired man, "Do you like me?" as he looks down at her. The light brown-haired man with red eyes stares wide-eyed and shocked, asking, "What is it?" A close-up shows the light brown-haired man's hand near his traditional attire. The light brown-haired man tells Hyangdan to stop following him if he doesn't like her, while a ferocious chihuahua appears and Hyangdan looks dismayed. Spit. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, turns her back and walks away in a huff, while the light brown-haired man watches, visibly annoyed. The men in hats loudly exclaim how arrogant he is, as birds fly around a traditional building under a clear sky. An aerial view of a traditional village courtyard shows 2 women in white and dark gray traditional clothes sitting at a low table. The dark gray-haired woman eats a snack, while the blue-haired woman asks if Hyangdan is truly okay on her own as she eats a small dark treat. The blue-haired woman laughs joyfully, covering her mouth as sparkles float around her. The dark gray-haired woman, holding a small treat, muses that it's delicious but there's just too little. The blue-haired woman and the dark gray-haired woman sit together, smiling, sharing a pleasant moment. The blue-haired woman thoughtfully closes her eyes, considering something deeply. The blue-haired woman, in a chibi form, cheerfully declares her belief in her distressed sis. Delicate hands gracefully play a traditional stringed instrument, creating a serene atmosphere. A man with light brown hair expresses gratitude for everyone's attendance, mentioning he invited them due to their absence. The light brown-haired man with red eyes smiles cunningly, making a gestured statement to the crowd. The light brown-haired man explains he had to personally invite them as the gathered men listen. The elder, white-bearded man expresses gratitude for the host's treatment, despite their inability to visit first. The light brown-haired man, closing his eyes, dismisses their apology, proclaiming himself not narrow-minded. A hand lifts a food cover as the light brown-haired man expresses his desire for good food and conversation. A swish sounds as the food cover is dramatically lifted, with the light brown-haired man thinking it won't clear the air. A beautiful spread of starfruit, seaweed chips, and milk curds with berries is presented. The light brown-haired man is utterly shocked and annoyed by the small portions, exclaiming it makes them look petty. His hand angrily thumps the table, conveying his strong displeasure. The furious chibi man plots revenge, feeling he's being targeted, while another man attempts to calm him. The light brown-haired man, visibly distressed, asks if something is wrong while other men observe him. The mustached man leans in, asking the troubled light brown-haired man, "What is the matter?" The light brown-haired man nervously faces the murmuring guests. The light brown-haired man, with a sly side glance, begins to explain, hinting at a new idea. The light brown-haired man grins widely, suggesting the chef explain the dishes for added banquet enjoyment. The light brown-haired man commands a scurrying clerk to call Hyangdan. The scene transitions with steps, revealing a statement. Actually, a foot steps forward as the speaker confidently reveals they were already awaiting the call. Hyangdan, a woman with long green hair and traditional white dress, stands ready, holding a scroll. The light brown-haired man challenges Hyangdan to explain the dishes with her clever mouth. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, offers a subtle, confident smile. A burst of energy announces a call for everyone's focused attention. Hyangdan dramatically raises her scroll, commanding everyone's attention with a flourish. Wolnay's Tavern Today's menu, detailing black barley tea and other dishes. The light brown-haired man looks bewildered as Hyangdan announces the day's prepared dishes, including seaweed chips. Hyangdan confidently explains her reinterpretation of traditions, detailing the black barley tea and moyakwa on the menu. The men listen intently as Hyangdan explains the symbolic meaning and flavor balance of the moyakwa. The mustache man ponders, considering the pasta-style milk curds. A hand presents the final dish, the seaweed chips. An illustration shows farmers and solar panels. As Hyangdan explains, rice, cultivated by farmers, is fried together. The light brown-haired man looks on as Hyangdan explains the dish represents a life where everyone fulfills their duties. The light brown-haired man appears overwhelmed and surprised by the profound explanation. Hyangdan smiles brightly, radiating confidence as she extends an open hand. Hyangdan stands triumphantly, having impressed the surprised men in the room. Two men react with astonished expressions, their hands clasped in surprise. The light brown-haired man and another are swept up in a powerful emotional reaction. A hand gently lowers a food cover with a soft swish. Two glistening starfruit slices float gracefully, radiating light. A spoon presents a delightful scoop of milk curds, adorned with red berries. Two glistening seaweed chips float, enticingly sparkling. A delightful spread of traditional dishes, including starfruit slices, dark sweet cakes, and milk curds with berries, sparkles with inviting warmth. The white-bearded elder looks utterly shocked, his mouth agape at the sight of the food. The white-bearded elder beams, giving a thumbs up and exclaiming that this is the best treatment he has ever received. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, confidently raises her scroll as the surrounding men praise her thoughtfulness and remark on the excellence of young people. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smiles radiantly, her hand covering her mouth amidst sparkling light. A simplified drawing shows the light brown-haired man and another man standing in a room. One of the men in a hat gives a thumbs up, surrounded by colorful light. The light brown-haired man with red eyes looks upset, a tear in his eye, thinking, swindler, as a dark, wavy background envelops him. Against a scenic traditional building, a voice demands a reward. The light brown-haired man with red eyes, wearing a black hat, looks irritated, asking if getting the contract from the nobles is not enough. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks confident, remarking that she performed well. The light brown-haired man, in a black hat, looking annoyed, tells Hyangdan to state her request. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks intently to the side, appearing to be in a conversation. The light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong, wearing a black hat, looks dismissive as he tells Hyangdan she is quite greedy for her age, with a slight tease. Chibi Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, asks if she is greedy, looking surprised in a darkened abstract scene with the light brown-haired man partially visible. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smiles cunningly with red eyes and an angry mark, telling him to accept her offer before she asks for everything, while a voice off-panel exclaims she is too much. The light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong, walks away looking annoyed as Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, approaches him and he begins to say, "So, then," with a stride sound. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, points an accusing finger at the light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong, asking if he will take it off or accept her terms, as he looks down. A close-up shows the traditional garments of the light brown-haired man and Hyangdan, with their clothes almost touching, indicating their close proximity during the confrontation. The light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong, looks flustered and gives in, exclaiming that he understands, with a swoosh sound. The light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong, reassures Hyangdan he will tell the clerk and someone will come to assist her. The light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong, walks away briskly from Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, who stands alone in the courtyard. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, stands watching, a thoughtful or satisfied expression on her face. From behind the light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong walks away as Hyangdan calls out, "Sir." The light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong, turns around sharply, looking shocked and frustrated as he shouts, "What?" Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, beams with joy and sparkles, playfully holding her dress and telling him to take care on his way home. From an aerial view, Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, walks confidently away with a whoosh sound, while the light brown-haired man is seen in the distance. The light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong, looks utterly shocked and frustrated by the interaction, with a skull and crossbones indicating his displeasure. The light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong, grinds his teeth in anger and frustration, uttering this with a grind sound. An aerial view of the bustling market village shows the dark gray-haired woman from previous images, asking if they know what's good about having more work. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks serious and asks, "What is it?" The blue-haired woman, in a cute chibi form, declares her excitement about being able to buy snacks more often at the market. Chibi Hyangdan wonders if Mongryong won't recognize her because she's changed, while chibi blue-haired woman vehemently denies the possibility. Chibi Hyangdan, smiling, humorously suggests she might have become too round. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, points happily as the blue-haired woman eats a snack, listening to someone calling out, "Fresh herbs for sale." A close-up reveals the wide, surprised eyes of Hyangdan and the blue-haired woman. Swoosh. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, and the blue-haired woman look forward intently. Hyangdan and the blue-haired woman approach a kneeling man in white, surrounded by bowls of herbs, with the blue-haired woman asking, "Huh?" The kneeling man in white, with black hair and freckles, looks up with a slight, hopeful smile. Close up on the kneeling man's hands and the various bowls of fresh green herbs and dried eggplant placed before him. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks completely astonished, exclaiming, "This is..." A close-up shows bowls overflowing with vibrant fresh green herbs. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, points knowingly, asking if the item is dried eggplant. The kneeling man in white smiles, complimenting Hyangdan on her knowledge of herbs. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smirks slyly, crediting a good teacher, as she envisions two cute cat-like chibis in traditional clothes. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, excitedly asks the kneeling man in white where he found such perfectly in-season herbs. The man scratches his head. The kneeling man in white explains that he picked the herbs from across the river, showing a small boat on a river near a thatched house. The kneeling man in white smiles, revealing that across the river is where his home is. The kneeling man in white thinks that people in this area don't appreciate these herbs, so no one seeks them out. The kneeling man in white smiles warmly. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, offers a subtle, confident smirk. Hyangdan joyfully exclaims they will purchase all the herbs, surprising the kneeling man and the blue-haired woman. The blue-haired woman, Chunhyang, looks concerned, asking Hyangdan why she would buy herbs no one else eats, while the kneeling man in white expresses his sincere gratitude. Amidst bowls of fresh herbs, Hyangdan calls out Chunhyang's name. A hand reaches out, its motion barely discernible. Chunhyang and the dark gray-haired woman sit together, with the dark gray-haired woman asking if Hyangdan is still not ready. Chunhyang looks distressed, wondering if she should go check on Hyangdan. Squeak! A door opens, and a voice apologizes for the wait. Chunhyang and the dark gray-haired woman eagerly ask if the food is ready now, with Chunhyang exclaiming, "Yum!" Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smiles as she presents a covered dish with a soft click, announcing the day's prepared meal. A red cloth is swept away, revealing a glistening bowl of mountain vegetable bibimbap with soy sauce. Chunhyang and the dark gray-haired woman admire the bibimbap, exclaiming how pretty and good-smelling it is. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, covers her mouth bashfully as she explains her effort to bring out the vegetables' flavors. In chibi form, Hyangdan offers the bibimbap to Chunhyang and the dark gray-haired woman, who eagerly begin to eat. The dark gray-haired woman laughs, finding the dish tasty, while chibi Hyangdan smiles happily. The dark gray-haired woman continues to eat, remarking that the dish is delicious enough to be sold anywhere. Chunhyang enthusiastically agrees about the deliciousness, and Hyangdan, with food on her face, happily confirms her gladness. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, beams with satisfaction, pleased by their positive reactions to her dish. An aerial view shows several houses as Hyangdan explains that her house, the one above it, and even their distant relatives all sell kukbap. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks thoughtful, pointing with one finger. Chunhyang and the dark gray-haired woman listen, as the dark gray-haired woman explains that while all kukbap is similar, the flavors are slightly different. Hyangdan listens intently, as the dark gray-haired woman suggests she should still give it a try, despite the potential hard work. A close-up of the dark gray-haired woman's hair suggests she continues to speak, delivering advice. The dark gray-haired woman explains that since Hyangdan is already famous among the nobles, she needs an even bigger impact. Hyangdan and Chunhyang listen to the dark gray-haired woman's strategic advice. The dark gray-haired woman smiles slyly, agreeing with her own plan. The dark gray-haired woman looks determined, clenching her fist, ready to push forward with her idea. Hyangdan and Chibi Chunhyang appear excited, both declaring they are ready to pursue the plan. The kneeling man, looking astonished, asks if they are truly going to buy all his herbs. The kneeling man, with wide eyes and clasped hands, looks overwhelmed and deeply grateful for the offer. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, cheerfully confirms they will buy all the herbs, with Chunhyang smiling in the background. Hyangdan, sitting opposite the kneeling man at the market, states her desire to make an exclusive contract. The kneeling man with black hair and freckles asks what Hyangdan intends to use the herbs for. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smiles confidently, assuring the man she has a purpose for the herbs. Chibi Hyangdan requests 3 kinds of herbs each season, startling the chibi kneeling man. A stylized depiction shows Hyangdan and the kneeling man shaking hands to seal their agreement. The kneeling man looks surprised as Hyangdan's hand extends towards him. Their hands clasp, solidifying the agreement between them. Hyangdan and Chunhyang both look utterly surprised, their eyes wide. The kneeling man bows, looking down and exclaiming his gratitude. The kneeling man weeps tears of joy, clasping his hands and repeatedly expressing profound thanks. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smiles subtly, appearing pleased with the outcome. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, beams with satisfaction, her eyes sparkling. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, holding the kneeling man's hands, joyfully suggests they introduce themselves now that the contract is sealed. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, introduces herself, and then Chunhyang. The kneeling man smiles brightly, looking pleased by the introduction. An aerial view of a traditional thatched house shows various items including red peppers drying in the yard. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, runs towards Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, exclaiming, "Mother, what's wrong?" The dark gray-haired woman walks away, looking back and telling Hyangdan and Chunhyang to look as Hyangdan stands and Chunhyang is on the ground, with a soft thump-thump sounding. The dark gray-haired woman anxiously asks what they should do, while Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks shocked, questioning what is going on, as another voice asks, "What is it?" A close-up shows Hyangdan's wide, alarmed eyes, with a drop of sweat indicating her surprise. A poster on a wooden board warns of a curse if the house isn't sold, leading Hyangdan to exclaim that it's too childish, with a sudden clang sounding. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks serious, while Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, looks distressed behind her, hesitantly asking if they should sell the house. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, ponders with a finger to her chin and a HNNNG sound, while the dark gray-haired woman watches her, looking annoyed. A close-up of Hyangdan's open mouth, possibly in exasperation, as an off-panel voice calls out to Chunhyang. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, kicks at the cursed poster with a squint sound, shocking the dark gray-haired woman and Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, who exclaims, "Oh my." A close-up shows a hand tearing a piece of white cloth, with a clear tearing sound. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks defiant, stating that a real curse will always return to the one who casts it. Close-up shows hands aggressively tearing apart a white cloth, accompanied by tearing sounds. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, stands confidently as torn paper flutters around her, with a whoosh and a YAA sounding. The dark, gray-haired woman and Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, look worriedly at Hyangdan, with the dark, gray-haired woman questioning if the curse might be real. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, beams with satisfaction, her eyes sparkling, radiating confidence. Pink clouds and cherry blossoms frame a thought bubble, stating that then all the ghosts and curses will disappear. The bustling market scene is filled with men chatting and laughing, creating a lively atmosphere. Two men sit on a bench, one enthusiastically agreeing with an off-panel statement. The dark, gray-haired woman smiles, announcing that 2 bibimbaps are served to 2 chibi men. A man with a white headband looks surprised, asking if the dark, gray-haired woman knew what they were going to order. The dark, gray-haired woman, with dark gray hair in a bun, smiles slyly, continuing her thoughts about the advantages. Chibi characters illustrate the dark gray-haired woman's points. One chibi eagerly wants to see their speed. Another chibi affirms their many customers and efficiency, while a chibi dark gray-haired woman warns they would be a nuisance if they went in now. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, and Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, eat from bowls as Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, remarks that the peach tree branch seems to be working well. A vase of cherry blossoms sits in a sunlit room, as an off-panel voice notes that nothing bad has happened and they have more customers. Chibi Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, sparkles with excitement, while Chibi Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks skeptical, as Chunhyang reveals the lucky charm is just water with vinegar and sugar, prompting Hyangdan to question this. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks surprised, asking, "Huh?" as Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, tells her, "I want to become like you, sis." A close-up shows Chunhyang's hand placed over her chest, emphasizing her earnest declaration. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, beams with determination and sparkles, expressing her admiration, while Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks taken aback. Chibi Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, declares she will do her best to Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, who responds with a confused, "Huh, yeah, sure?" Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, dramatically collapses onto a low table, declaring that another day is ending with a plop sound. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, sits tiredly on a bench as a voice from off-panel states, and that means with a thud sound. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smiles confidently, stating it is time to prepare for tomorrow's business. Chibi Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, assures Chibi Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, that she will handle the trimming so Chunhyang can rest, accompanied by a thump sound. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, kneels on the ground, appearing distressed and mumbling that she doesn't want to. Chibi Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, throws a tantrum with a thump and roll sound, loudly complaining about resting only 1 day out of 5 and wishing for more frequent rest. A close-up shows Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, upside down, looking up with a surprised expression, asking, "Huh?" The light brown-haired man, Mongryong, appears upside down, looking down at Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, who exclaims, "Magistrate." The light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong, sits near Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, who looks surprised, and he remarks that she is such a wild child. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, sits politely, calmly informing the light brown-haired man that they are closed for today. The light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong, stands with his arms crossed, looking thoughtful or displeased. The light brown-haired man, Mongryong, takes 2 deliberate steps away, his black and red traditional shoes visible. The light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong, sits down with a thud next to Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, calling her situation ridiculous and asking if she didn't plan on opening for dinner. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, winks and tells the light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong, that they are out of ingredients for today. A close-up shows the intense red eye of the light brown-haired man, conveying that he is staring. The light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong, sitting with Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, states he will get straight to the point and asks if she isn't tired of living like this. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, looks pensive as the light brown-haired man describes her life waiting for her husband, who knows when he'll come. The light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong, chuckles slyly, emphasizing that she has to work every day without rest. An illustration shows a man on horseback and another studying, representing the light brown-haired man's point that passing the exam is not easy. The light brown-haired man with red eyes, Mongryong, explains that countless people have spent over 10 years studying, and matchmakers will flock even if her husband passes the exam, with a thud sound. 2 men with hats stand next to a horse as the light brown-haired man, Mongryong, questions whether Chunhyang would even catch her husband's eye among the noble ladies. Chunhyang clenches her hand tightly, firmly stating no to Mongryong's propositions. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, looks determined, clarifying that her life is not solely about waiting for Mongryong. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, appears thoughtful, reflecting that Chunhyang was indeed lovesick for days initially. A chibi Chunhyang is depicted diligently cooking, illustrating her daily routine of preparing meals. A chibi Chunhyang is shown scurrying around, carrying dishes, symbolizing her busy and active life. A chibi Chunhyang is peacefully sleeping, representing the exhaustion and eventual rest that comes after her long days. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, smiles brightly, looking upwards and expressing that she doesn't feel sorry for others. Chunhyang's feet take deliberate steps, indicating her resolve as she declares she has her own life, with a quick tap sounding. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, looks optimistically at Mongryong, stating she would be happy to marry him, despite his displeased expression. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, and Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, stand in serious conversation. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, turns his head away, looking annoyed and scratching at his hat. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, covers her mouth and coughs, looking distressed. The dark gray-haired woman holds a white bag over Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, who looks up with a resigned expression. A close-up shows Mongryong's hands resting as another hand reaches down towards them. The dark gray-haired woman states she accidentally opened the sack, which spills its contents onto Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, who looks annoyed, with a thump sounding. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks utterly shocked, holding a hand to her mouth as something falls on her, with a loud YAA sounding. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, grins slyly, a hint of mischief in his expression. Chibi Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, apologizes for tearing the sack, while Chibi Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, looks upset, telling them to stop. A single candle illuminates a dark room, as a chibi figure thinks, An off-panel voice observes that the handwriting looks like that of an educated person, amidst the darkness. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, sits looking thoughtful, touching her chin in contemplation. A panel shows a chibi drawing in a red flower as an off-panel voice, with a thump sound, comments that an educated person is acting childishly. Chibi Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, sits pensive with a sweat drop, contemplating the situation. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, suddenly looks alarmed, holding her head, with a thump sound, as she wonders who this despicable person could be, with Chunhyang shown sleeping in the background. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, looks menacing with a glowing red eye and a black hat, his face partially obscured with a soft shh sound. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks surprised, realizing with a gasp that in this world, there's only one villain. A hand clenches into a fist with a whack sound as an off-panel voice exclaims, "Byeon Hakdo, this!" Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, and Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, look surprised as Mongryong, the light brown-haired man in a black hat, stands gesturing, about to speak. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, looks shocked, his red eyes wide as he points a finger, exclaiming a sudden realization. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, stands with her eyes closed, hands gesturing expressively, looking pensive outdoors. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, turns his head in profile, his eyes closed in a dismissive expression, stating he doesn't really care. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, stands talking to Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, who sits on the floor, asking if their frequent meetings are due to a specific reason. Hands knead dough on a wooden surface as an off-panel voice questions if they keep meeting because the other person keeps coming there. Chibi Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, happily offers sujebi, while Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, yells, his expression filled with rage. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, sighs, holding a small cloth, suggesting that if the other person doesn't want to see her, they can simply stop visiting the lady. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, looks dumbfounded and annoyed, questioning why he should comply and who would benefit from that action. Chibi Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, floats above Chibi Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, and HMPH, questions why someone is so narrow-minded. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, and Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, look at a smiling Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, who sits between them, as Mongryong begins to speak. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, smiles warmly, clapping her hands together as she offers, "Ah, instead, would you like some tea?" Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, and Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, both look confused, surrounded by question marks, as Mongryong asks, A traditional building's thatched roof is visible against a beautiful evening sky, illuminated by a glowing paper lantern. Liquid is poured into 3 small bowls, with a slurp sound indicating someone drinking. Hands exchange a small cup, one offering and the other receiving, with a gentle clink sound. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, smiles happily as she, Mongryong, and Hyangdan sit at a low table, suggesting they can't keep standing and talking. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, and Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, both look annoyed while an off-panel voice encourages them to talk comfortably. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, and Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, continue to glare, maintaining their annoyed expressions. Chibi Chunhyang smiles while offering a cup, oblivious to the horrified Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, and the annoyed Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, with Hyangdan questioning their mindset. A close-up shows a hand holding a cup, as an off-panel voice politely asks someone not to bother the lady. Chibi Chunhyang smiles, offering a cup, as Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks horrified, and Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, appears annoyed. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, confronts Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, asking if he's the problem for always picking fights, to which Mongryong, holding a cup, replies with a surprised, "What?" A close-up emphasizes Mongryong's hand holding the cup as he questions Hyangdan. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, looks exasperated, explaining he isn't picking a fight but that Hyangdan is interfering. A hand slams a cup down onto a surface, causing liquid to splash out with a resounding thud. The spilled cup emphasizes the impact of the previous slam, with liquid still splashing from the forceful action. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, sits looking serious, holding a small cup. Chibi Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, happily thinks that Hyangdan is standing up for her, while Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, and Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, glare at each other. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, maintains a serious and slightly annoyed expression while holding a small cup. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, looking displeased, asks why he should listen to Hyangdan. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, gestures dramatically, complaining that they have dragged out this ridiculous issue for too long, as Chibi Chunhyang looks on happily. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, is shown from behind, sitting formally, with a mysterious watery pattern on his clothes, indicating a shift in his mood. An expansive aerial view reveals a vast, traditional village, nestled within a mountainous landscape. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, stands looking serious, declaring his responsibility to govern Namwon, with the village visible in the background. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, reiterates his responsibility to govern Namwon, maintaining a serious and determined expression. A hand reaches out to touch Chunhyang's fingers, as an off-panel voice with a thud sound asks Chunhyang a question. The light brown-haired man asks Chunhyang, who looks distressed, if she wouldn't want her hometown to become stable as soon as possible, as someone born and raised there. A close-up shows a hand grasping fabric as an off-panel voice interjects with but. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, and Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, look at each other with concerned expressions. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, and Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, continue to look at each other, their expressions unchanged. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, confidently tells the light brown-haired man that none of their neighbors would do such a thing. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, listens intently as Hyangdan's voice explains that it's because they are all good people. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, listens with a serious and contemplative expression. A close-up shows the light brown-haired man's mouth with a thump sound, indicating a silent reaction or slight intake of breath. That's what she said. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, throws his arms up in exasperation, loudly complaining if Hyangdan's words wouldn't make him angry, as another man looks on. The man with the black hat in a chibi panel loudly exclaims, "How can anyone be so vile?" with a thump and sniff sound, showing his indignation. The man with the black hat in a close-up vehemently states that they're obviously looking down on you. The man with the black hat stands pointing, reiterating his point that they're obviously looking down on you, while Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, sits with his back turned. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, closes his red eye with an ugh sound, acknowledging Hyangdan's words. I know. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, thinks that there's nothing he can say to that. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, holds a writing tool, looking troubled and thinking that there's nothing he can say to Hyangdan's point, letting out a ha sigh. A close-up shows hands, with one hand highlighted, and a whack sound, indicating a sudden movement. This isn't something we can just brush off. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, looks serious, with shadowy figures of people above him, wondering what they will do later. The light brown-haired man, Mongryong, looks surprised, questioning, "What do you mean, what they'll do?" The man in the black hat gestures dramatically, warning that that girl will try to walk all over you and others will follow suit. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, buries his face in his hand, letting out a ha sigh, admitting he doesn't know what to do. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, looks pensive as he reveals he didn't report it, but sent a letter, prompting the off-panel man to ask, "A letter?" Hands rustle and hold a letter, with a soft rustle sound, as Mongryong states he received a reply a few days ago. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, looks surprised as the off-panel man asks who he is exchanging letters with. The man in the black hat, identified as Chunhyang's father, Mr. Seong, stands proudly as Mongryong explains his identity. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, looks shocked, his red eye wide with surprise, with a clang sound. Hands rustle and unfold a letter, with a soft rustle sound. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, is shown holding the letter, as Chunhyang's father, Mr. Seong, states that the elder has also expressed great concern about the current situation. The man in the black hat, Mr. Seong, affirms yes to an off-panel query. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, smiles confidently, holding the unfolded letter, believing that even that talkative kid will lose his words with a clack-clack sound. A woven basket, covered with a white cloth, is handed over to an off-panel recipient as someone says, "Here you go." Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smiles widely, happily holding the basket, expressing her thanks for this time. Two men with dark hair smile, one of them stating that all sorts of herbs are appearing now that spring is here. The green-haired woman holds out a basket with a small pouch, asking if they could bring all varieties of herbs next time. The dark-haired woman and a man look concerned, questioning if there won't be too many leftovers. Chibi Hyangdan cheerfully explains she can dry and sell the leftovers in winter, reassuring the two chibi people who express relief. The two men wave goodbye at a doorway, stating they'll be on their way and see the others next week, as an off-panel voice bids farewell. The green-haired woman smiles happily, waving goodbye to the departing visitors. The green-haired woman, holding a basket, smiles contentedly and declares she should get to work. A top-down view shows the green-haired woman walking with musical notes floating around her, indicating her cheerful mood. Hands gently place a woven basket down with a soft rest sound. The green-haired woman smiles confidently, looking up with light reflecting off her. Chibi Hyangdan, with mischievous devil horns, thinks with a hee-hee that she should make Chunhyang work too. A hand firmly grasps a door knocker, ready to knock. The green-haired woman smiles brightly, calling out, "Chunhyang." The green-haired woman exclaims, "What?" about the herbs, while Chunhyang lies on the floor, seemingly unconscious or deeply asleep. Chunhyang, with long blue hair, sobs and calls out sis, while Hyangdan looks down at her. Papers are scattered across the floor as an off-panel voice asks if Mongryong has changed. Chunhyang sobs, tearfully insisting that Mongryong has definitely changed and urging someone to look at the papers. A crumpled piece of paper covered in scribbled text suggests a letter or important document. A letter from Mongryong to Chunhyang describes blooming flowers in spring, hoping she is well and encouraging her to walk often since the days are getting longer. Chibi Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, cries dramatically, looking distraught amidst wavy blue patterns. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, holds a letter, looking shocked and thinking, this isn't how it was in the original story, while an off-panel voice wails about how this could happen. Chibi Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks distressed, wiping her eye while clutching a small piece of paper. Chibi Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks utterly bewildered, surrounded by question marks, as she stares at a small piece of paper. To Chunhyang, I am writing to you because the spring flowers are blooming, and it is spring. I hope everyone is well. From Mongryong. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman's hands carefully hold an unfolded letter, her expression serious. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks surprised, questioning the letter's vertical reading as she realizes it might contain a hidden message, similar to a saved phone message. Chibi Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, attempts to console a sobbing Chibi Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, gently calling her name. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, presents the letter to a tearful Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, urging her to take a closer look, as Chunhyang sniffles and asks, "Huh?" With a flutter of paper, Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, reveals to Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, that reading the letter vertically spells out, "Chunhyang, I adore you." A stream of tears runs down Chunhyang's face, her hand covering her mouth in a powerful display of emotion. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, cries out Mongryong's name with renewed hope, while Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, sits nearby amidst scattered papers. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smiles with satisfaction, stating that she told Chunhyang there was no way Mongryong would do that. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, gestures confidently, while a Chibi Chunhyang in a thought bubble looks tearfully at a small paper, calling out for her sis. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, sniffles, looking downcast as she admits she was being weak-hearted. A close-up on Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, shows a sudden thought popping into her mind, referencing what the magistrate said last time. Chibi Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, shouts, "Kayak!" and furiously grabs Chibi Chunhyang's face, telling her not to listen to that guy. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, stands with crossed arms and a whoosh, contemplating someone who knows the world so well. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, holds the letter, looking surprised as she considers the truth of what was said. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, points with conviction, asserting that the individual is merely a naive scholar who only knows the world through books. Pink cherry blossoms frame a beautiful, clear sky, with a thought bubble declaring, "The weather is so nice today." Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, stands with crossed arms, looking annoyed, asking what kind of trouble someone is here to cause this time, as Chunhyang and another blue-haired woman look on nervously. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man in a large hat, stands with his arms crossed, looking thoughtful, while another man in a black hat stands behind him. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, chuckles with a mischievous smile, amidst electric sparks, asking if all their visits so far haven't been personal. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man in a large hat, sighs, covering his mouth as he states he is not someone with that much free time. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, grins widely at Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, who looks startled by her grab, amidst bright light effects. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, looks exasperated, his eyes closed, with a small sweat drop on his temple. A hand gently touches a robe as Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, states he is not here to see Hyangdan today. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, declares his business is with Wolmai, the dark gray-haired woman, causing both Wolmai and Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, to gasp in surprise, with Wolmai asking, "May?" Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, gasps and covers her mouth, wondering if it could be her father, as a Chibi Mongryong emphatically shouts, "No." Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, looks exasperated, asking if they think he is joking, before sighing and resigning himself. A hand holds a folded paper against a dark background as Mongryong reveals the reason he came today. The dark-haired woman looks shocked, her eyes wide with distress, exclaiming, this is... A light, brown-haired man's hand reaches out, holding a folded paper, as the air shivers around him. The light brown-haired man in a large hat smiles slyly, questioning if the person was the previous magistrate of Namwon. The green-haired woman looks up, surprised and a little alarmed, as a large hand reaches out from the foreground. The light brown-haired man and another man in a black hat stand facing away, while the green-haired woman, the blue-haired woman, and another woman observe them. The green-haired woman looks utterly bewildered and slightly annoyed, with wide eyes and furrowed brows. A close-up reveals the light brown-haired man's intense red eye with a vertical pupil. The light brown-haired man, with a playful smile and red eyes, acknowledges, "You noticed," as flower petals swish around him. A foot takes a step as the light brown-haired man's voice asserts, "You're very smart." The green-haired woman stands defiantly, looking up at the light brown-haired man with an annoyed expression. A hand clenches into a fist with a squeeze sound as an off-panel voice asks if it isn't a good offer. The scene transitions to the traditional setting, where Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks up at Mongryong, the light brown-haired man in a large hat. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, dismissively states there is no need for him to discuss anything, accompanied by a swish. A close-up on Mongryong's intense red eye shows his unyielding and assertive demeanor. Wolmei, the dark gray-haired woman, looks surprised and worried, clasping her hands together. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, looks up at Wolmei with a worried expression, calling her mother. The dark-haired man states that if he said that, then he has no other choice, appearing resigned. Wolmei, the dark gray-haired woman, and Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, look surprised as Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, seems to be involved in a transaction with the dark-haired man. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, reacts with a thud and a whoosh of alarm, calling out, "Ma'am." Mongryong, the light brown-haired man with red eyes, leans over Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, in a menacing manner, stating there is nothing she can do if her mother agrees. Mongryong's close-up reinforces his assertion that there is nothing she can do. Shattered glass fragments and red text reveal a breakdown, with phrases like, "Don't be like that, it's only natural. What were we expecting? And what can you have when you have different parents?" ending with a small figure and a sword. Three faceless boys stand together, as the brown-haired boy in the center speaks with a look of superiority. A young girl, with short dark hair, sits on the ground, looking up from what she was doing. The brown-haired boy points accusingly, demanding to know if she lives there. His question hangs in the air as a sign for the happy orphanage comes into view, recalling his mother's words about children without parents. In a flash of violence, a fist smashes into the brown-haired boy's face. The girl with short dark hair flees the scene, leaving the boy she just punched tumbling to the ground. Standing with fists clenched, the girl's face is shadowed in fury, her eyes glowing with menace. A sudden wave of rage and shock contorts her expression. Her fist tightens, a clear symbol of her contained anger. A woman with wavy brown hair, her face obscured by shadow, embraces the crying brown-haired boy. A brown-haired woman angrily states, "This is why I said I didn't want an orphanage here." A man's hand grips a brown-haired boy who smirks despite the accusation of ruining a noble family's precious son. The brown-haired woman sniffles, her face contorted in distress. A tall man with brown hair embraces the crying brown-haired boy, offering comfort. A woman with long brown hair looks utterly distraught, her eyes closed in sorrow. The woman with long brown hair gently places her hand on the brown-haired boy's shoulder, who looks surprised. The woman with long brown hair leans down to the brown-haired boy, telling him to quickly apologize for what he did wrong. A close-up shows a single tear falling from the brown-haired boy's eye. An adult's hand holds the brown-haired boy's hand, leading him away from a building entrance. A close-up of the brown-haired woman's eye reveals a determined or pained expression. A woman and a small boy walk away, leaving a clear trail of footprints behind them. The scene focuses on the fading footprints on the ground, emphasizing the journey. A pair of feet stand, with a thought bubble revealing they were 10 steps behind everyone else. Documents labeled admission information and school guide are visible as an off-panel voice addresses Hyanggi. A dark-haired man leans down, talking to another person seated below him. The dark-haired man states that tuition at Hankook University is very expensive. A dark-haired woman, looking downcast, hears that she's in a position where she has to repay everything. The dark-haired man with glasses smiles, gesturing, and reveals that's what the teacher thinks. A young person sits alone, hearing that while graduating from a prestigious university is great, One must know and keep their place. Hands hold a school report, displaying scores and institute information. A hand firmly presses on a shoulder with a thud, asking if the listener understands. A dark-haired woman looks distressed, her eyes wide with a swirling background, suggesting immense shock or mental turmoil. Hyanggi, the dark-haired woman, looks deeply distressed, her eyes wide with a swirling background, hinting at immense emotional turmoil. Hyanggi, the dark-haired woman with a ponytail, offers a faint, resigned smile, eyes closed in what appears to be acceptance. Hyanggi, the dark-haired woman, stands with her head bowed, accepting the idea that it is a good course of action. An unseen speaker's voice explains that taking a leave of absence would mean taking away someone else's opportunity. The voice continues, asking if it is not right to give the opportunity to someone who can do better, as Hyanggi's face remains partially obscured. A hand with a dark sleeve presses a computer mouse, a final clunk sound confirming a decisive action. Hyanggi, the dark-haired woman's eye is shown in a close-up, looking down, as the clunk sound signifies the mouse click. Hyanggi, the dark-haired woman's eye is again shown in a close-up, looking down as the clunk sound emphasizes the computer mouse click. Hyanggi, the dark-haired woman, sits at her computer, looking at a university admissions page and thinking it was easier to simply go along with it. Hyanggi, the dark-haired woman, continues to reflect, confirming it was easier to just go along with the decision while looking at the university application. Hyanggi, the dark-haired woman, looks weary as she types on a keyboard with a flick sound, thinking she did not have to listen to other people's obvious advice. A cursor hovers over a red submit button on the screen, accompanied by the word hesitate, highlighting her internal conflict. Hyanggi, the dark-haired woman, wears a pained expression and red marks under her eyes, indicating deep emotional struggle. Hyanggi, the dark-haired woman, maintains her pained expression, emphasizing her internal anguish and weariness. Hyanggi, the dark-haired woman, now depicted with blue hair, cries with her hand covering her mouth, showing profound sadness in a changed setting. Her hands hover over a keyboard, poised to click a submit button on a blue form, with a clunk sound, indicating a reluctant but final action. A close-up shows hands poised over a keyboard, ready to type, symbolizing the commitment to the difficult decision. A starry, ethereal background suggests a profound truth, stating that this situation won't change, even in the Joseon era, connecting past and present. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, clenches her jaw tightly, a tense squeeze sound accompanying her determined expression. A foot stomps down with a forceful sound effect, demonstrating a sudden and decisive movement. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, urgently shouts, "Sir!" with a swish as she rushes towards Mongryong, the light brown-haired man who is walking away. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, shouts, "Sir!" with a look of urgency, emphasizing her desperate attempt to get his attention. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man with red eyes, turns to ask Hyangdan if she has anything more to say. A speech bubble declares, "In the natural principles you love so much," while Wulmei, the dark gray-haired woman, and another man look on with surprise. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man with red eyes, maintains a serious and resolute expression in the traditional setting. "In the natural principles you love so much." The long gray-haired man in a hat looks concerned as he hears the statement. "Do you know there are always exceptions?" Mongryong, the light brown-haired man with red eyes, smirks confidently, hands behind his back, looking at Hyangdan, the green-haired woman. Even the sun rising and setting, even the moon waxing and waning. The artistic scene continues, asserting that everything has a rule, even the blooming and withering of flowers, emphasizing the pervasive order of nature. The traditional village is shown in a soft focus, fading view, suggesting a moment of reflection or transition. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, leans down and looks intently at Hyangdan, the green-haired woman. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, grins mischievously, a grin sound effect highlighting her cunning. Mongryong stands close to Hyangdan, continuing their intense conversation, his hands slightly raised. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smiles broadly and confidently, sparkling with a newfound resolve. Mongryong, the light brown-haired man, looks startled and asks, "What?" seemingly surprised by Hyangdan's reaction or words. A hand points upwards with a sharp sound effect, conveying emphasis or a challenge. A speech bubble against a blue sky, reflecting on the natural principles that you spoke of, seemingly challenging Mongryong's earlier statement. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, raises her arm defiantly in the traditional village, directly addressing Mongryong. The scene shifts to a peaceful garden, where a hand gently tends to a plant with a quiet swish. Hyangdan and a man with a white headband are seen gardening together in a field of flowers. The man asks Hyangdan why she made a bet with the magistrate as she works. He suggests explaining the situation, but Hyangdan gives a firm and simple no. Hyangdan explains that surrendering now would only make the magistrate more smug. The man with the headband worries, questioning if the risk is truly necessary. Hyangdan replies that it's a necessary task that someone has to undertake. She looks up, her expression resolute as her hair blows in the breeze. The man watches her, taking in her determination. Hyangdan turns to him with a confident and reassuring smile. Moved by her words about helping each other in troubled times, the man is brought to a single tear. He stands up abruptly, enthusiastically offering his help, much to Hyangdan's surprise. He insists it's better to work together, and Chibi Hyangdan reluctantly admits he has a point. Hyangdan looks up at him, revealing she knows a very wise person who might be able to help. With sparkling eyes, she expresses her faith that this all-knowing person can solve their problem. She excitedly turns to the man, ready to seek out this wise individual. The man smiles warmly, telling her she already knows this person. A woman with dark hair tied in a bun appears, looking slightly flustered by the attention. Chibi versions of Hyangdan and the man gaze at the dark-haired woman with hopeful starry eyes, declaring she knows everything. The wise woman humbly dismisses her knowledge as mere trifles before her arm is suddenly grabbed. Hyangdan clasps the woman's hand, her face a mask of desperate appeal. As the wise woman and the man look on in surprise, Hyangdan's desperate plea is palpable. The two look down with concern at the hands clasped between them. Hyangdan passionately begs the wise woman to share anything she might know, no matter how uncertain. The wise woman closes her eyes and smiles, taking Hyangdan's hands into her own with a calming presence. She begins to tell a story of a small cave hidden deep within the mountains. The tale continues, describing a divine herb, and introduces the story of a brother and sister. In a painted flashback, the two siblings are shown running from a ferocious tiger. They flee into a dark cave, only to find themselves trapped with no way out. Cornered and desperate, the children pray for help, and a hole miraculously opens in the cave's ceiling. Their mother, now a divine being, reaches down from the heavens to lift her children to safety. Returning to the present, the wise woman gently frames Hyangdan's stunned face with her hands. She forms her hands into a heart, explaining the story is about a bond, like that of a close brother and sister. Hyangdan smiles brightly, remarking on how fascinating the story is. The scene transitions, focusing on a hand holding a calligraphy brush above a scroll. In the evening, the magistrate sits at his desk, diligently writing. His brush moves gracefully across the paper, filling the scroll with characters. The magistrate's long-haired attendant enters the room and respectfully addresses him as Sir. The attendant announces Hyangdan's arrival, causing the magistrate to look up with a jolt of shock. The magistrate's eyes are wide with disbelief as he questions the news. An unseen observer wonders why someone has arrived so early, questioning their purpose at this hour. The blue-haired woman explains that someone wants to take the light, gray-haired man somewhere, leaving him looking confused. The blue-haired woman reacts with a shocked, "What?" as she conveys the request that the road is rough and the light gray-haired man should change into civilian clothes. An unseen light gray-haired man clenches his fist, expressing outrage at the insolent request. The light gray-haired man fiercely threatens death by his hand, while an off-panel voice casually remarks that he'll change clothes anyway. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, stands with her arms crossed, gazing at the traditional village courtyard with a pensive expression. Large footsteps forward, accompanied by a step sound, as an unseen speaker playfully addresses the departing Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, as our busy servant. The light gray-haired man, in his traditional blue attire, questions why someone has come so early in the morning. A large foot steps forward as the off-panel voice again playfully addresses Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, as our busy servant. The light gray-haired man, in his traditional blue attire, repeats his question about the early morning visit. The light gray-haired man with red eyes looks serious, wondering if the visitor has come to apologize. With a sigh, Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, declares that she has come to prove what she asserted previously. The light gray-haired man recalls their previous discussion about going against the natural order with a noisy sound, as Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, reiterates her intention to prove her earlier statement. The light gray-haired man questions if she is referring to their previous conversation about defying the natural order, accompanied by a noisy sound. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, triumphantly announces she found what she was looking for, while the light gray-haired man smirks, curious about the nonsense she plans to present. The light gray-haired man with red eyes smirks, clearly intrigued and skeptical about what the green-haired woman will reveal. With a slight grimace, Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, watches as the light gray-haired man, with a boom, declares, "Then let's go," and walks away. The light gray-haired man with red eyes, looking dismissive, tells her to do as she pleases. The light gray-haired man walks alone through a vibrant field of pink blooming flowers under an aerial view. The light gray-haired man and Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, continue their journey together through the beautiful pink flower field. The light gray-haired man with red eyes smiles, observing the blooming pink flowers and remarking that it truly is spring. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks worried with a drop of sweat on her face as the light gray-haired man watches her from the background. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, maintains her worried expression, a bead of sweat on her face, with the light gray-haired man still observing her from behind. The light gray-haired man with red eyes smiles, stating that it's only natural for flowers to bloom as the weather warms. The light gray-haired man's voice asserts that the blooming of flowers is simply the natural order, as Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, listens intently. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, challenges his statement by pointing out that some flowers bloom even in winter. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, continues walking amidst the pink flowers, reiterating her counter-argument about flowers that bloom in winter. As they walk through the field, Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, further argues that some flowers bloom later than others. The light gray-haired man with red eyes challenges Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, by stating that ultimately all flowers must bloom at some point. Hyangdan explains that her point is that one shouldn't try to force nature. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, and the light gray-haired man stand facing each other in the blossoming flower field, their gazes locked. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, and the light gray-haired man exchange an intense gaze, each reflecting on their discussion. A mysterious cave entrance appears in a rocky landscape, framed by falling pink petals, hinting at a new destination. They arrive at a cave entrance, and the green-haired woman indicates they are here. The light gray-haired man with red eyes questions if something like this was here as well. The green-haired woman questions if the light gray-haired man was unaware of such things because he was confined to his government office. With a sudden tap, the light gray-haired man places his hand on the green-haired woman's arm, stopping her. The light gray-haired man warns that it would be dangerous to enter without a light source. With a whoosh of alarm, the green-haired woman quickly refutes his assumption, exclaiming no. The green-haired woman clarifies her statement, saying it is easier to see when it's dark. The green-haired woman and the light gray-haired man stand hand in hand, looking at each other amidst a vibrant, blooming landscape. The light gray-haired man and the green-haired woman exchange intense gazes in a split panel. The green-haired woman, with a thump, questions if it is appropriate to hold a woman's hand like that. The light gray-haired man, looking exasperated, suggests the green-haired woman should reflect on her own actions first. The light gray-haired man angrily accuses the green-haired woman of acting foolish and disrespecting people, while she casually dismisses his words with a sniff. A hand reaches out as the green-haired woman asks if he is even listening, to which the light gray-haired man simply affirms. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, extends her hand, admitting she did everything wrong and asking someone to hurry and come to her. A white-clad foot takes a step on a rough, earthy surface. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, and the light gray-haired man walk together through a rocky, dimly lit cave from an overhead perspective. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, clarifies that the cave is not very deep, so it is all right. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, reacts with a startled expression and a sound like "ya." A hand makes a grab at the light gray-haired man's robe, causing his clothing to ripple. The light gray-haired man sighs, "Ha!" with a worried expression and a bead of sweat on his face. Both the light gray-haired man with red eyes and Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, react with matching expressions of surprise. The light gray-haired man holds Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, in a surprising embrace, causing Hyangdan to stammer an oh, well. An off-panel voice, presumably Hyangdan, emphatically declares, being completely caught off guard. The light gray-haired man looks surprised, with his hand raised as Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, stumbles back with a clack. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, walks away from the cave entrance, distressed, internally chastising herself for making a mistake she attributes to nervousness. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, closes her eye tightly with a squeeze, a tear forming as she reflects. But still, Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, gazes at various images of the handsome light gray-haired man, letting out a soft gasp as she thinks about his attractiveness. Chalk drawings of a monster's face and the letters N-E are revealed on a cave wall with a playful "ta-da." The chalk drawing of the monster's face and the letters NE on the cave wall are examined, with an off-panel voice drawing attention to and the mark below. In the cave, the light gray-haired man lists cardinal directions as Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, points to a drawing and asks, "This?" While he secretly thinks her drawing skills are terrible. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, urgently grabs the light gray-haired man's arm, exclaiming, "Wait, just a minute." The light gray-haired man with red eyes looks annoyed and asks, "What now?" With a grin, Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, reveals a mischievous smile as her hands subtly touch another's. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, cheerfully instructs the light gray-haired man to cover his eyes from this point forward, holding up a white cloth. The light gray-haired man, with a flinch, nervously asks if Hyangdan plans to attack him after covering his eyes, to which she replies, "Have you been deceived so much?" Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, playfully pleads with the light gray-haired man to simply do it once, while he sighs in exasperation. Hands gently cover the light gray-haired man's eyes, accompanied by a soft rustle sound. Hands gently cover the light gray-haired man's eyes with a soft rustle sound. The light gray-haired man's eyes are now completely covered by the white cloth. The blindfolded light gray-haired man questions how he is supposed to walk like this. The green-haired woman reassures him that she will hold his hand, telling him not to worry. The green-haired woman holds the light gray-haired man's hand and asks if he trusts her to continue their journey. The light gray-haired man reluctantly agrees, and they walk hand in hand deeper into the mysterious cave. With a step, the green-haired woman reminds him of his previous statement about going against the natural order. The light gray-haired man confirms her point, looking up slightly with his blindfolded eyes. The green-haired woman begins a story about siblings who ran away from a tiger. The story continues, recounting how the siblings wished for a miracle while hiding in a cave. Their hands remain clasped together as the green-haired woman continues her story. The green-haired woman's story describes a mother who became a fairy descending from the sky, surrounded by glowing blue butterflies. As they walk further into the cave, surrounded by butterflies, the story concludes with the siblings ascending to become the sun and moon. The light gray-haired man reacts with surprise, noting that this version of the story differs from what he knows. The green-haired woman emphasizes that the important thing is that his current knowledge is not everything. With a rustle, the green-haired woman elaborates that the fact his experiences aren't everything is what matters, as she adjusts the blindfold. A close-up reveals the light gray-haired man's red eye, now sparkling with a hint of revelation. The scene transforms into a magical, brightly lit cave with white flowers and luminous butterflies, bathed in ethereal light. The green-haired woman gazes upwards, visibly amazed by the extraordinary cave environment. The light gray-haired man, with his blindfold partially askew, lets out a soft gasp in wonder. The light gray-haired man with red eyes looks up, jaw slightly dropped in utter astonishment. His red eye is wide, filled with disbelief and wonder at the sight before him. A crescent moon-shaped light illuminates the cave, and the green-haired woman declares this is where the moon rises, even during the daytime. The green-haired woman gestures, challenging him by asking if this is not what he truly desired. The light gray-haired man maintains a skeptical smirk as the green-haired woman watches his reaction. The light gray-haired man thinks to himself, dismissing this as merely the same crude trick as last time. The light gray-haired man and the green-haired woman stand side by side, facing the magical cave entrance. The green-haired woman states that if a flower grows by looking at that moonlight, then it is sufficient. The light gray-haired man admits, with a flinch, that he has never done anything like Chunhyang and knows little about romantic relationships. The light gray-haired man with red eyes, with a T-esque sound, claims he cannot say much about romantic relationships. A close-up shows the light gray-haired man's hand clenching his clothes. The green-haired woman flashes a bright, beaming smile. The green-haired woman declares her desire to continue observing and protecting this wondrous sight. The green-haired woman playfully imagines the benefits of a handsome or well-built servant, with chibi illustrations. With a spin, the green-haired woman smiles and asks the light gray-haired man if he agrees with her. The green-haired woman's eyes widen with a hint of realization or surprise. The light gray-haired man appears flustered, asking if the green-haired woman finds him touching. The light gray-haired man with red eyes and the green-haired woman stand together in the brightly lit, magical cave adorned with white flowers and luminous butterflies. The light gray-haired man with red eyes blushes deeply, his heart making thump sounds as he touches his chin, seemingly contemplating something. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks at him, asking if this is perfect for their plans. Hyangdan gestures with her hand up, looking serious as she makes a point. The light, gray-haired man's blushing face and red eye indicate his distress, as he thinks this is exactly what he means by something impossible. Hyangdan seriously conveys her thoughts across 2 panels, emphasizing her point. Hyangdan smiles brightly while the light gray-haired man's red eyes are shown to be deeply flushed, reflecting his intense reaction. Hyangdan clasps her hands together. A chuckle escapes as she begins to explain her meaning. She illustrates her point with an image of savory milk becoming tangy and sweet curdled milk, garnished with fruit. Hyangdan continues her explanation, displaying roasted barley and describing its deep and subtle bitter taste. Hyangdan raises her finger, adamantly declaring that nothing in this world is simply a given. Hyangdan holds her stern expression, her finger still raised, reinforcing her serious point. Hyangdan leans in with a bullsug sound, scolding the light gray-haired man for not answering her. Hyangdan grins playfully, asking if the light gray-haired man is speechless. The light gray-haired man, still blushing and with a HHWIG sound, reluctantly admits she has presented a rather convincing idea. Hyangdan turns away with a twirl, clarifying that she didn't come up with the idea all by herself. Hyangdan kneels among luminous butterflies and white flowers, revealing that she had help from others. The glowing white flowers and butterflies adorn the ground, creating a magical atmosphere. Hyangdan's hands gently gather a small bouquet of the ethereal white flowers. As she walks, Hyangdan thinks that while people say you can't escape fate, a sweep sound accompanies her thought. Hyangdan holds the flowers, pondering that it's about the moment one overturns their destiny. The light gray-haired man, still flustered, questions if Hyangdan also awaits such a pivotal moment. Hyangdan looks down at the flowers in her hands, admitting she doesn't know. Hyangdan's hands delicately weave the white flowers into a small, circular crown. Her hand gestures with a sweep as she states her contentment with things as they are now. Hyangdan gently places a flower crown on the blue-haired woman's wrist, speculating that perhaps she has already experienced that moment. The light gray-haired man's red eyes are wide, reflecting his deep blush and intense emotional reaction. The blue-haired woman's wrist, adorned with the white flower crown, is gently framed by the light gray-haired man's hovering hands. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, addresses the light gray-haired man as Sir as they stand in the cave. A wide aerial view displays a bustling traditional village with multiple buildings and courtyards. The light gray-haired man with red eyes, wearing a black and red hat, sits at a desk, writing with a brush, thinking that the crops are bad this year. A brush carefully writes characters onto paper in a close-up shot. The light gray-haired man with red eyes murmurs, "Hyangdan," with a contemplative expression. The light gray-haired man with red eyes looks slightly frustrated, stating that someone is talking nonsense. The light gray-haired man with red eyes stands with the green-haired woman in the mystical cave, asking if it wasn't all for Sung Chunhyang. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smiles brightly, declaring she is not a saint. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, gestures playfully, explaining that helping him would also benefit her. The light, gray-haired man with red eyes looks flustered, asking if she means she would be happy if a miracle happened to her too. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks at him intently, asking, "Wouldn't anyone?" The light, gray-haired man with red eyes collapses onto his desk with a thud, surrounded by lines indicating his sudden fall. The white-robed, light, gray-haired man reacts with a creak, exclaiming, "Master?" in a surprised tone. The white-robed, light, gray-haired man stands over the collapsed, light, gray-haired man with red eyes, asking what is wrong. The light, gray-haired man with red eyes, now sitting up, sighs, lamenting how much he has learned, yet how much he still doesn't know. The white-robed, light, gray-haired man observes the light, gray-haired man with red eyes, noting his recent sighing and asking if it is due to the villagers. The light, gray-haired man with red eyes sits alone at his desk, dismissively thinking that it cannot be about the villagers. The light, gray-haired man with red eyes looks concerned, making a whoosh sound, and admitting that perhaps it is about the villagers after all. The white-robed, light, gray-haired man gently touches the light, gray-haired man with red eyes' shoulder, suggesting he talk to people directly. The light, gray-haired man with red eyes, in a chibi illustration, asks if he should go in person. The white-robed, light, gray-haired man reluctantly agrees, stating that conversations should be held in person, as they face a doorway. The light, gray-haired man with red eyes smiles at the white-robed, light, gray-haired man, assuring him his worries will melt away if he goes. The light, gray-haired man with red eyes smiles, making a swish sound, and decides he will go tomorrow morning. The white-robed, light gray-haired man holds the black and red hat, looking displeased. The light gray-haired man with red eyes smiles slyly, thinking to himself that it might be a very sinister plot. The light gray-haired man with red eyes bids the white-robed, light gray-haired man good night, walking away from the building into the dark night. Several women in the village whisper with shocked expressions, reacting to something off-panel. The light gray-haired man with red eyes stands tall in the village, dressed in white civilian clothes and a traditional hat. A close-up reveals the confident, smiling face of the light gray-haired man with red eyes. The white-robed, light gray-haired man looks confused, asking why the red-eyed man dressed up so much for what seems to be a personal matter. The light gray-haired man with red eyes replies that if he is going somewhere, he might as well dress up. The light gray-haired man with red eyes holds an elegant white fan decorated with a cherry blossom branch. The women in the village react with expressions of surprise and awe, remarking that they can't do anything if the young master decides so. The light gray-haired man with red eyes smiles, thinking to himself that no one can stop him if he wants to do something, concluding with a confident right. Two thought bubbles reflect on the past, concluding that it was just a misunderstanding and a strange atmosphere in the cave yesterday. Serene outdoor scene shows a traditional village, with houses nestled around a large tree under a bright sky. The light gray-haired man with red eyes smugly thinks that if he sees her today, she will probably look the same as before. The white-robed, light gray-haired man walks alongside the light gray-haired man with red eyes, announcing the arrival of the magistrate. The light gray-haired man with red eyes reacts with annoyance, questioning if the magistrate's procession isn't too impolite. A close-up on the light gray-haired man's red eye, as he thinks with a step that the magistrate should show some dignity. The light gray-haired man's red eye glares as he thinks with a step that the magistrate should show some dignity. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, stands with a slight frown, questioning the light gray-haired man's unexpected presence. The light gray-haired man looks away, a bead of sweat on his face as he wonders, why? With a thump sounding. The light gray-haired man blushes deeply, his heart making a thump sound, as he thinks about how Hyangdan still looks so pretty. The light gray-haired man's hand subtly grips his robe with a ga sound, betraying his nervousness. His thought persists, questioning why she remains so pretty, followed by a thump as his heart pounds. Hyangdan stands, looking up at the light gray-haired man with red eyes, who sparkles under the bright sky. The light gray-haired man with red eyes blushes deeply, his heart making thump sounds as he reacts intensely. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks concerned as she calls out, Nari? Chibi versions of the light gray-haired man and the white-robed light gray-haired man react with panicked expressions to the unexpected rain, while the red-eyed man awkwardly declares, the DD day is nice. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, with a knowing smirk and a sigh, responds that the day is indeed nice, then asks the light gray-haired man his reason for being there. The light gray-haired man with red eyes strides forward, asking if he needs a reason to visit, while Hyangdan looks exasperated, and the white-robed, light gray-haired man walks beside him. Hyangdan reminds the red-eyed man the tavern isn't open yet, but he insists he wants to eat, and the white-robed, light gray-haired man urges Hyangdan to sit. The light gray-haired man with red eyes smiles, stating he won't order rice soup since it's still early morning. The light gray-haired man with red eyes, seated at a table, requests whatever is available, and Hyangdan, seen from above, reluctantly agrees with an angry symbol. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, and an older woman with dark hair cautiously peer from behind a door, with Chunhyang calling out, Hyangdan. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks irritated and frustrated. A hand places a basket of freshly prepared rice balls onto a red table with a thud sound. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, presents the rice balls with a ya sound, stating this is all she can serve at the moment. A close-up on Hyangdan's neat braided green hair and traditional attire. The light gray-haired man with red eyes apologizes for his sudden visit, while Hyangdan smiles, saying it's fine, as the white-robed, light gray-haired man stands nearby. A hand picks up a rice ball, and the light gray-haired man with red eyes asks with a she-ob sound if she made this as well. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, clarifies that only the stir-fried anchovies inside are her doing, while the light gray-haired man, holding a rice ball, muses, is that so? The light gray-haired man with red eyes takes a bite of the rice ball, appearing to savor it. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, with chibi versions of herself appearing, closes her eyes in annoyance, thinking about the trouble being caused so early in the morning. The light gray-haired man with red eyes, holding a rice ball, hesitates and responds yes, To Hyangdan's unvoiced thoughts, the light gray-haired man with red eyes, looking pleased, declares the rice ball delicious, especially the well-seasoned stir-fried anchovies. The blue-haired woman, Chunhyang, anxiously asks the light gray-haired man if he's all right, but he flusteredly insists he is fine. The light gray-haired man sighs and turns away with a HWIK sound, lamenting that Hyangdan remains difficult even when he compliments her. Hyangdan playfully questions who dislikes a compliment, while the light gray-haired man mentally dismisses her as a narrow-minded brat. Hyangdan makes a HWIK sound, raising her hand to indicate she's just kidding. Hyangdan giggles, saying, "Just kidding," while the light gray-haired man sighs, thinking he cannot treat her poorly because of Chunhyang. The light gray-haired man sits alone at his desk, deep in contemplation. The white-robed, light gray-haired man smiles, suggesting they let it go, while Hyangdan looks on with an annoyed expression. The white-robed, light gray-haired man looks utterly exhausted and asks why he was roused at the crack of dawn. A door creaks open with a KKAAEG sound, revealing a glimpse of the outside. Hyangdan enters, carrying a package, and offers the blue-haired woman Chunhyang honey rice cakes, much to Chunhyang's surprise. Hyangdan sets down a wrapped bundle, explaining that she received it after giving side dishes to the magistrate, which shocks Chunhyang. Hands carefully untie the fabric knot of the wrapped package. Chunhyang gasps whoa and marvels at the beautiful flower-shaped rice cakes, exclaiming how pretty they are. With a tilt of her head, Chunhyang asks if the magistrate gave away so much of such a precious item. Hyangdan shrugs with a shrug, nonchalantly remarking that the magistrate likely has plenty, given his wealth. Hyangdan takes a bite, declares it delicious, and in chibi form, urges Chunhyang to try some quickly. Chunhyang's eyes widen with a huh sound as she hesitantly considers the idea. Chunhyang excitedly asks if the magistrate likes Hyangdan, causing Hyangdan to react with a shocked KKUEOG sound. In chibi form, Chunhyang asks if Hyangdan is okay, to which Hyangdan, also chibi, reassures her she's fine. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, sits dejected on the floor, questioning how such nonsense could scare someone. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, leans in, annoyed, asserting with a bullsick sound that it's not nonsense and is entirely possible, much to Hyangdan's surprise. Hyangdan's hands clutch a white handkerchief, betraying her nervousness in the intense discussion. Hyangdan looks puzzled, asking how that could be, then questions if Chunhyang realizes she is the story's main character. Chunhyang beams with confidence, declaring her experience and asking if Hyangdan trusts her, with thoughts of daily love letters and an unwavering heart. A chibi Hyangdan sarcastically agrees with a shrink sound, while Chunhyang, seen from behind, angrily asks if she said anything wrong. Chunhyang collapses backward with thud sounds, recounting Hyangdan's past incorrect predictions about other relationships. A patterned background hints at the continuation of Chunhyang's list of past relationship misjudgments. The light, gray-haired man with red eyes, partially obscured by a doorway, shouts, "All right, stop it," with a thump sound, trying to calm the situation. A serene, brightly lit scene of a traditional village with houses nestled beneath a clear sky suggests a shift in focus. The magistrate, a man with a thin beard in traditional black and red robes, stands in a room full of scrolls, muttering, A close-up shows the lower half of the light gray-haired man's white robe and legs, standing on a patterned rug. The magistrate, smiling broadly, asks if he should share his clever plan to solve Chunhyang's problem. The light gray-haired man with red eyes, dressed in black and red robes and holding a scroll, states he decided to abandon that plan, surprising someone off-panel. A close-up on the red-eyed man's eyes, he thinks with a swish that the problem cannot be resolved through marriage. The magistrate looks distressed, asking with a PPAK sound why the red-eyed man suddenly changed his mind. The red-eyed man, shown from the perspective of his hat, thinks with a grin that nobleman would still find fault, even if he married Chunhyang. The light, gray-haired man with red eyes smiles subtly, a hint of amusement in his expression. A thought bubble over a stack of scrolls reveals the red-eyed man's intention to try harder on his own first. The magistrate, with a kubag sound, looks up inquisitively, asking, "Is that so?" A close-up on the light gray-haired man's mouth suggests he is about to speak. The light gray-haired man with red eyes smiles warmly and openly, radiating composure. The light gray-haired man with red eyes, holding a scroll, declares he will handle things himself from now on, as the magistrate looks on with a suck and flap sound. The magistrate, with a stern expression, tells the light gray-haired man to do as you please against a dark, somber background. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks up, surprised, asking, "Huh, as rain begins to fall. Villagers scatter as rain pours down, and Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, wonders why it is raining suddenly. Rain falls heavily on a village path as several indistinct figures hurry to take shelter. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, runs through the sudden downpour, shielding her head. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, bends over in the pouring rain, sighing that she should take a rest. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smiles faintly despite the rain, remarking that spring rain is really scary. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, walks in the rain, reflecting on how much time has passed since she arrived, with a quiet suk sound. Hyangdan thinks about the many events that have unfolded, but is glad she is protecting Chunhyang, while silhouettes of a man and woman hold hands. Hyangdan, with a knowing smirk, acknowledges an ambush, as a mischievous chibi version of the red-eyed man grins in her thoughts. Hyangdan looks up at the rainy sky, contemplating her fate once the story concludes. The green-haired woman, Hyangdan, smiles and runs, thinking she should escape while she can, as a voice calls, "Hey," with a suk sound. Two men, one shirtless and the other with a headband, confront someone asking if they are Hyangdan. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks visibly shocked and terrified, with a whoosh sound. A man's foot blocks Hyangdan's path, affirming her identity, grabbing her as he states they are not bad people and gently taps her. A suk sound is heard. The green-haired woman, Hyangdan, runs frantically, trying to escape as a voice shouts, "Stop there!" and the sound of "run" echoes. A man's foot splashes through water, forcefully repeating the command to stop. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, falls with a thump, looking utterly shocked and distressed, accompanied by a burn sound. Hyangdan, bruised and on the ground, thinks in disbelief that she has never witnessed such an event in a fairy tale. A man's foot taps as he decides to head to the main road, followed by a glowing image and another footstepping, while Hyangdan's terrified face appears on a dark, glitchy background. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, stands tied up, her back to the viewer, as a large, bearded man looms behind her with a chuck sound, a picturesque view of a traditional village at sunset or sunrise, with mountains in the background, signals a change of scene. Three villagers, 2 men and 1 woman, whisper and glance nervously, reacting to an unseen event. The older woman with dark hair looks worried, thinking about Hyungbu's wife and questioning where the child might have gone. A hand gently taps another person's arm, offering reassurance with the words, "Don't worry." The dark-haired woman comforts the older woman with dark hair, suggesting Hyangdan probably went to the mountains to pick wild strawberries. The dark-haired man points, recalling Hyangdan's plan to make a new dessert with wild strawberries, as the dark-haired woman looks on. The older woman with dark hair looks deeply worried, clutching her arm, hoping that Hyangdan's absence is just for wild strawberries. Chunhyang runs in, calling for her mother, while a background character asks if Hyangdan has been found. The older woman with dark hair reports that no one at the market has seen Hyangdan either, shocking the dark-haired woman who exclaims, "That can't be." A thought bubble expresses distress, questioning what they should do since they've looked everywhere for Hyangdan but can't find her. Chunhyang cries, with tears streaming down her face, looking visibly upset. The older woman with dark hair comforts Chunhyang, wondering how big the market is amidst the search. The dark-haired man looks determined and serious. The dark-haired man suggests they all go together, believing they will find Hyangdan sooner, with more people searching, as the older woman embraces Chunhyang. Chunhyang, still crying, asks, "Really?" as she is embraced by the older woman. The dark-haired man smiles reassuringly, affirming, "Of course." The scene shifts to a village path with a distant archway, suggesting a transition to the search. A thought bubble from an unseen character questions if sickness doesn't affect someone when they are walking around the market. The light gray-haired man with red eyes, wearing a black hat and robes, smiles subtly. 2 white-robed men, including an older man with a white beard, look utterly shocked, with raindrops indicating a sudden change in weather. The light gray-haired man's leg takes a step, as a speech bubble from an unseen speaker complains about him feigning illness for rent while he was seen walking around without concern. The older white-robed man looks worried and is visibly sweating. A close-up on a sweating eye suggests a nervous glance. The light gray-haired man with red eyes stands partially obscured, while a man with a thin mustache and black hat observes him from the background. The light gray-haired man's eyes flinch downwards, suggesting he's been caught or startled against a dark, patterned background. The older white-robed man looks startled and wide-eyed. The older white-robed man tells the light gray-haired man that he doesn't think His Excellency needs to worry about the rent, while the light gray-haired man dismissively thinks it's absurd. The light gray-haired man with red eyes frowns, looking displeased. Chunhyang runs towards the light gray-haired man, pleading, "Sir, you need to help us." The older white-robed man looks concerned. Chunhyang, crying and distressed, asks the older white-robed man to quickly gather people. The light gray-haired man with red eyes looks annoyed, asking Chunhyang if she can't see they're in the middle of an important conversation. Chunhyang is devastated by the light gray-haired man's harsh dismissal, who declares he is more important and tells her to return tomorrow, while mentally calling her that little brat of the magistrate. The older white-robed man addresses the light gray-haired man as Lim Magistrate, urging him to hear Chunhyang out because she must be in a difficult situation. The light gray-haired man sighs and reluctantly asks what all the fuss is about. A close-up of Chunhyang's tearful face as she calls out, "Sis," Chunhyang informs the light gray-haired man with red eyes that Hyangdan is gone. The light gray-haired man with red eyes looks serious and concerned, with the man with a thin mustache standing behind him. The man with a thin mustache asks the light gray-haired man if he didn't see her across the river, then confirms that he did. A faded image of Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, waves cheerfully as a voice recalls she was only going to buy ingredients for today's business and come right back. Chunhyang looks anxious and sad, reporting that no one has seen her sister at the market either. The man with the thin mustache chuckles, speculating that Hyangdan probably ran away because Chunhyang worked her too hard. Hands are pressed together in a gasp of disbelief, with a speech bubble exclaiming, "That can't be." Chunhyang yells at the man with a thin mustache, vehemently denying his suggestion, saying, "There's no way that's true." The man with a thin mustache looks smugly at Chunhyang, asking if servants aren't originally like that. The light gray-haired man with red eyes turns his back and walks away. The man with a thin mustache raises a hand to stop himself, about to suggest looking for a new servant. The light gray-haired man with red eyes orders someone to go back to the government office and gather the guards, which is acknowledged with a yes. A close-up shows the lower back and leg of the light gray-haired man, highlighting the red beaded adornments of his black robe. The older white-robed man asks if he should gather people, then affirms he will. The blue-haired woman, Chunhyang, cries, wiping her tears, and is told not to worry, with a soft suck sound. The light gray-haired man with red eyes looks determined, declaring he will definitely find Hyangdan. The scene transitions to a sunset landscape as multiple voices frantically call out Hyangdan's name. Villagers search a field at sunset, calling for Hyangdan, and a white-robed woman asks an older woman, who stumbles if she is all right. A stumble sound is heard. The older woman with dark hair worries, wondering where Hyangdan could have gone with dangerous animals lurking. The blue-haired woman, Chunhyang, embraces a man, hopefully thinking that Hyangdan is probably just lost. The blue-haired woman, Chunhyang, looks distraught and worried, clutching her chest. Villagers search through the sunny forest, with one remarking that Hyangdan should be back soon given how many people are looking for her. I hope so. The blue-haired woman expresses surprise to the older woman with dark hair that the magistrate sent so many people to help. Chibi versions of the older woman with dark hair and the blue-haired woman, Chunhyang, discuss that the magistrate must have grown fond of Hyangdan. The older woman with dark hair and the blue-haired woman look concerned as the light fades, noting that it's getting too dark. The sun sets over the landscape as a worried thought lingers about Hyangdan's safety. Will she be okay? A man in a black hat approaches the light gray-haired man in red robes, respectfully calling out, "Sir." The man in a black hat looks directly at the light gray-haired man, advising that it's getting dark and they should head back. The light gray-haired man with red eyes looks determined, questioning if they can't search just a little longer for Hyangdan. The man in a black hat argues that continuing the search for a servant like Hyangdan could endanger others. The light gray-haired man with red eyes listens, as the aide declares that as an aide, he cannot take such a risk. A close-up shows the light gray-haired man's red beaded adornments as he listens intently. A chilling thought emerges that there are tigers in the area, adding a new layer of danger. The light gray-haired man with red eyes sighs in resignation and decides they must withdraw, agreeing to return tomorrow morning. The man in a black hat looks utterly shocked by the decision to retreat. The blue-haired woman's foot taps on the ground with a tap-tap sound as she urgently calls out, "Just a minute." The blue-haired woman, Chunhyang, looks distressed and asserts they haven't found Hyangdan yet. The man in a black hat looks incredulous, questioning if they should sacrifice lives just to find a servant. The blue-haired woman, Chunhyang, looks distressed and begins to object with a but as the week passes. The light gray-haired man's boot takes a decisive step as his voice reassures, "Don't worry." The light gray-haired man in a black hat observes two white-robed women and a white-robed man on a path. The older woman with dark hair smiles gently, reflecting that Hyangdan is indeed that kind of girl. The light gray-haired man with red eyes smiles, warning that Hyangdan would be even more upset if she knew they were getting hurt. Chibi versions of the green-haired and blue-haired women, along with another woman, react with wide-eyed distress, agreeing that it is true. The light, gray-haired man with closed eyes instructs a white-robed man to take the two home, who responds, "Yes, sir," with a crow sound. The light gray-haired man announces he will continue searching and then descend, surprising the other three with a sharp, "Huh." The man with a thin mustache looks worried and sweating, questioning if such an extensive search is truly necessary. The light gray-haired man with red eyes turns away, looking clearly annoyed. The light gray-haired man, soaked in rain, exclaims in frustration that it is raining again, with a guttural HYAH sound. The light gray-haired man in red and black robes stands alone in the downpour, lamenting his dwindling strength and the fruitless search for bracken. The light gray-haired man with red eyes frantically shouts Hyangdan's name into the heavy rain. The light gray-haired man stumbles with a piteous sound, calling out Hyangdan, and expresses a pained ugh. The light gray-haired man leans heavily on his sheathed sword, exhausted in the pouring rain, a pack sound accompanying his struggle. From a high vantage point, the light gray-haired man in red and black robes appears small and isolated on the rocky, rain-swept ground, with the sound of intense rain. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smiles radiantly in a bright, glowing memory or vision. The light gray-haired man with red eyes closes his eyes, blushing as he sighs softly, lost in thought, a gentle ha sound heard. The light gray-haired man with red eyes looks somber and weary, his face wet from the rain. The light gray-haired man stumbles, leaning on his sword, deciding he must continue, with a stumble sound in the heavy rain. A powerful kick with a bang sound sends the light gray-haired man's boot flying as he screams, "Ah!" The light gray-haired man lies defeated on the ground in the rain, his hat and sword cast aside, uttering a soft, "Ooh!" The light gray-haired man lies face down in the rain, looking pained, and exclaims, "Oh my!" The light gray-haired man's red eye snaps open in sudden shock. The light gray-haired man lies defeated in the rain, while the green-haired woman, Hyangdan, is discovered tied up and unconscious against rocky terrain. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, is tied up and unconscious against the rocks, as a voice questions if it is her. The light gray-haired man grunts, "Ugh," and staggers with a stagger sound, trying to regain his balance, his sword still close. The light gray-haired man, with a tap-tap sound, turns and desperately calls out, "Hyangdan!" In the rain, a tack sound is heard. The light gray-haired man holds the unconscious Hyangdan against him in the rocky, rain-soaked area. The light gray-haired man gently holds Hyangdan's hair with a squeeze sound, asks if something is wrong, and then closes his eyes in contemplation with a soft TNG sound. Hyangdan's eye snaps open in a sudden, startled reaction. A B-band DEUK sound is heard. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, screams in panic as she headbutts the light gray-haired man, who recoils in surprise, with PPAA and AK sounds. The chibi light gray-haired man, on the ground, sighs, and realizes the chibi green-haired woman thought he was a kidnapper upon seeing him. The green-haired woman, Hyangdan, looks bewildered, questioning where she is and why she's not at the market. The light gray-haired man with red eyes holds his head in distress, wondering why someone from the market would be tied up in a cave. The light gray-haired man with red eyes continues to look pained, his expression showing deep concern. The light gray-haired man replies he doesn't know why she's there, and the green-haired woman, Hyangdan, explains strange men were chasing her at the market. The light gray-haired man's hand grips his sword, with a thud sound as a thought bubble begins. First, the scene focuses on a red, abstract background as a voice urgently instructs someone to wait, just stay still for a moment. The light gray-haired man's hand again tightens on his sword with a thud, reiterating his focus on the first step. The light gray-haired man with red eyes dramatically draws his gleaming sword, reiterating, "Wait, just stay still for a moment." With his sword drawn, the light gray-haired man with red eyes questions if the magistrate sent him to kill her, thinking the situation is crazy. The green-haired woman, Hyangdan, looks utterly terrified, thinking this is how she will die. The green-haired woman, Hyangdan, resigns herself, thinking, "So this is how I die," only for the light gray-haired man to swiftly cut her ropes. The two then sit facing each other, with the light gray-haired man exclaiming, "Geez!" at her bewildered look. The light gray-haired man with red eyes sighs, "Geez," as the green-haired woman sits across from him. The light gray-haired man with red eyes grumbles, complaining he didn't expect to be insulted for saving the green-haired woman. The green-haired woman, Hyangdan, smiles faintly, clarifying she was merely suspicious, not insulting, and then wonders if it's the same thing. The green-haired woman and the light gray-haired man with red eyes sit on the ground, sharing a moment of calm. The green-haired woman, Hyangdan, looks up thoughtfully, expressing her gladness that he is still the same as before. The green-haired woman's eye is shown as the light gray-haired man's voice expresses relief. I'm glad you seem okay. The light gray-haired man with red eyes smiles warmly, expressing his relief that the green-haired woman seems okay. The light gray-haired man reassures Hyangdan as they sit together in the rain, telling her he is glad she is okay. The light gray-haired man and Hyangdan sit side by side, sharing a quiet moment as they look into the distance. Hyangdan looks surprised and asks the light gray-haired man why he has been so worried about her. The light gray-haired man thinks about Hyangdan's disappearance, while Hyangdan sits dejectedly, pouting and questioning if he is serious about worrying for her. The light gray-haired man looks upwards, reflecting that hardworking people stand out. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, questions the light gray-haired man if he thinks his efforts are excessive. Hyangdan blushes and looks flustered, remarking on his constant research into unheard-of tea preparations. The light gray-haired man smiles broadly, observing that Hyangdan meddles in everything he does. Heavy rain falls, sounding like sha-ah-ah as a thought bubble wishes for a break. Hyangdan looks reflective, admitting that she does want to rest. Hyangdan asserts that there is such a thing as satisfaction. Hyangdan further explains that satisfaction is a huge source of strength for living. The light gray-haired man looks downcast, stating that satisfaction only works once or twice and cannot sustain one forever. Hyangdan looks concerned, warning that without satisfaction, one might sink even deeper. A solitary white flower is highlighted amidst the rain as the light gray-haired man offers to share a bit of his story. A partial view shows the feet of several individuals in modern shoes, standing in a line. A brown-haired student in a school uniform is shown from behind. The brown-haired student looks up in profile, revealing a thought that most people pitied her. The brown-haired student looks surprised, thinking she didn't agree with their pity, while other students are partially visible. A foot thumps on the stairs as a thought reveals, I hated that look, so I worked even harder. A girl runs up a long flight of stairs, reflecting that her intense efforts must have become a habit. The light gray-haired man with red eyes looks serious, questioning if her relentless efforts yielded the desired results. The green-haired woman, Hyangdan, pauses thoughtfully, then turns away, stating a clear no to his question. The light gray-haired man with red eyes looks empathetic, remarking that he understands, having felt that way before too. The green-haired woman, Hyangdan, thinks sarcastically about the illustrious young master having such feelings, then replies with a snort, of course. The light gray-haired man with red eyes looks resigned, saying, all right, then wonders aloud what else there is to do in a cave. A group of formally dressed people are shown as a voice narrates about the eldest Hyun family son, who received everyone's expectations and attention. A man in white robes diligently writes at a desk, illuminated by a warm lamp in the darkness. A hand holds a paintbrush with iridescent colors, drips falling from its tip in a dark, abstract scene. Two hands gently hold each other as an unseen narrator reflects on their brother's different choice. A stern man and a weeping woman are shown, with a ghostly couple behind them, as the narrator explains their brother married an ordinary woman, not a noble. A woman with braided hair cradles a swaddled baby as the narrator continues their story, and the one who was born to fill my brother's empty spot. A close-up reveals a baby with distinctive red eyes looking up, and the narrator concludes, was me. A group of people in traditional attire stand formally before a building, as the narrator recounts taking on the role of their departed brother. The light gray-haired man with red eyes, wearing formal attire, looks somber, thinking he unwillingly accepted his new role. The light gray-haired man explains to Hyangdan in the cave that Namwon is a golden opportunity for him. The light gray-haired man further clarifies that Namwon is the first step to proving himself to his parents, but admits it is not going as planned. The light gray-haired man with red eyes offers a small, rueful smile. The light gray-haired man with red eyes expresses empathy to Hyangdan, saying it must have been hard for her. A chibi Hyangdan looks on as a chibi-like gray-haired man blushes, admitting he is used to hardships now. Hyangdan looks thoughtful and asks the light gray-haired man, what's next? Hyangdan, sitting across from the light gray-haired man who looks surprised, clarifies her question. After you're acknowledged, what's next? The light gray-haired man with red eyes looks wide-eyed and stunned by Hyangdan's unexpected question. The light gray-haired man's voice suggests a philosophy of independence, stating, you live your own life. The light gray-haired man with red eyes is shown in profile, a slight smile on his face as he delivers his wisdom. Hyangdan and the light gray-haired man make eye contact, and the light gray-haired man, blushing slightly, suggests what's next is more. A close-up of their faces with a thump sound indicates a sudden, shared realization or emotional beat between them. The light gray-haired man's red eye widens with a thump-thump as Hyangdan's eye also widens with a thump, both blushing. A flustered Hyangdan turns to a blushing, light gray-haired man, admonishing him to stop putting himself down, then ironically criticizes him for it. Rain falls over lush green foliage as an unseen voice advises careful thought, emphasizing its importance. Hyangdan, with her arms crossed, reflects to the light gray-haired man that the magistrate no longer feels so distant. Hyangdan smiles brightly, followed by a close-up of the light gray-haired man's red eye, then a shot of him blushing and smiling softly. Well, the light gray-haired man, looking pained and exasperated, remarks on Hyangdan's positivity despite almost becoming tiger food. Chibi Hyangdan looks bewildered, asking about tiger food, to which Chibi light gray-haired man replies, you. A shocked Hyangdan asks the light gray-haired man if there are really tigers here. The light gray-haired man confirms to Hyangdan that he already told her about the tigers in the area. A sheathed sword is shown, as the light gray-haired man explains he brought it because of the tigers. A Chibi Hyangdan looks utterly stunned and bewildered, asking incredulously if the light gray-haired man really didn't know. A hand, presumably Hyangdan's, grabs the light gray-haired man's sleeve with a bulsuk sound, while he thinks, "Yeah, it's surprising." The light gray-haired man's eyes are wide in confusion, with a question mark floating above his head. Hyangdan shakes the light gray-haired man, exclaiming they shouldn't be there if tigers are real. He grabs her arm, telling her to wait. Hyangdan, pulling back from the light gray-haired man, urgently warns that heavy rain makes it too dangerous to go down, even apart from the tigers. The light gray-haired man smiles confidently at Hyangdan, reassuring her, "Don't worry, I'll protect you." The light gray-haired man's eye widens as he realizes and blushes, questioning if his remark was too blatant. The light gray-haired man holds Hyangdan's wrist, who looks at him with a questioning expression. A chibi light gray-haired man, flustered and blushing, mumbles about being the magistrate and an adult who will protect her, while Hyangdan observes him, thinking unreliable. A chibi Hyangdan gives 2 thumbs up, confidently declaring she will fight with him, thinking there's strength in numbers, while the light gray-haired man thinks distrust. The light gray-haired man touches Hyangdan's hand, looking into her eyes as he clarifies, "That's not what I meant." Hyangdan smiles slyly, suggesting that since no tiger has appeared, the cave might have been abandoned. The light gray-haired man smiles somewhat nervously, agreeing, that might be true." From inside the cave, heavy rain is seen outside as a voice notes, "We don't know when the rain will stop. For now, let's sleep." The light gray-haired man covers his face in resignation, as he suggests to Hyangdan that they sleep for now. A single white flower blooms against a bright, sunlit green background. The light gray-haired man smiles, extending his hand and warning Hyangdan that the moss is slippery from the rain. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks surprised and slightly flustered as she reaches out to a branch adorned with white flowers. Hyangdan's foot slips or stumbles with an ah sound, causing a moment of alarm. The light gray-haired man looks concerned, observing Hyangdan stumble with his red eyes. The light gray-haired man carries Hyangdan in his arms with a pow sound as she looks up at him with wide, surprised, blushing eyes. The light gray-haired man, blushing slightly, apologizes with a PPIK sound, saying, "Oh, what do I do? I'm sorry." The light gray-haired man, smiling widely, playfully tells Hyangdan, "You should have been careful," while still holding her. The light gray-haired man holds Hyangdan close and smiles down at her, playfully remarking with a Dujeon sound, "Really, you're such a tomboy," as Hyangdan blushes and her heart thumps with a Dujeon sound. The light gray-haired man is shown sleeping peacefully, with a petal floating gently nearby. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks surprised and a bit disoriented as she asks, "Are you awake now?" The light gray-haired man yawns and stretches, asking, "When did I fall asleep?" Then his eyes widen, and he blushes with a ha and ak sound as a sudden realization hits him. A chibi Hyangdan sits, looking annoyed, as a chibi light gray-haired man kneels frantically with rustle rustle and ilguk sounds, apologizing profusely with censored dialogue. A chibi light gray-haired man, still flustered and blushing, asks in a small bubble, "WHWH, when did you start doing that?" Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, stands up with a thump sound, pulling at her skirt and smiling contentedly. With the sky clear overhead, the light gray-haired man suggests that, since the rain stopped while you were sleeping, they can go home now, to which Hyangdan responds, "Oh, Ah, yes. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, smiles brightly and extends her hand, ready to depart. The light gray-haired man looks away, blushing, perhaps flustered by Hyangdan's gesture or their recent closeness. A large, ghostly hand appears in the foreground as a group, including Chunhyang, stands on a path, and an unseen speaker exclaims, "His Excellency hasn't returned yet." The gray-haired woman, looking stern, declares that if one serves the magistrate, they should obviously go look for him. A close-up of a light gray-haired person's hand, gesturing. The chief constable, a man in a black hat, TSKS, with an annoyed expression. Chunhyang, the blue-haired woman, distressed, asks if the chief constable can make a decision now that the person in charge is gone. A hand is shown adjusting traditional clothing with a soft suk sound. The light gray-haired man, standing next to Chunhyang, agrees the chief constable could decide, but notes he is being stubborn. The chief constable looks exasperated, loudly proclaiming that moving troops is a significant undertaking. A voice argues back, questioning if a person disappearing isn't also a major issue. Chunhyang passionately argues with the chief constable, accusing him of disloyalty, while murmurs arise, some agreeing and others claiming he is loyal. The chief constable dismisses Chunhyang's words with a, "What do you know?" As a thought bubble suggests, Chunhyang is right. The light gray-haired man and Hyangdan walk together through lush greenery, as he reflects that the chief constable also has a valid point. Chunhyang looks absolutely thrilled, joyfully calling out sis to Hyangdan as others smile. Hyangdan is joyfully embraced by Chunhyang, reassuring her she is okay, while a voice calls out to the young master. A crying man asks the light gray-haired man if he is all right, who then admonishes him not to use his title publicly, but the man insists his safe return is paramount. The chief constable looks down, appearing somber and contemplative. Hyangdan watches the interactions with a surprised expression. The chief constable, with clasped hands, expresses immense relief to the light gray-haired man, confirming he knew he would be all right, with a bulsuk sound. Hyangdan looks wide-eyed and surprised next to a happily surprised Chunhyang, who holds her arm. The chief constable flinches, then grudgingly concedes that the light gray-haired man is also correct. The light gray-haired man explains to the chief constable that the king's soldiers cannot be moved recklessly by anyone other than himself. The light gray-haired man tells Hyangdan he is relieved she returned safely. The light gray-haired man gestures with his hand, asking Hyangdan if his statement is not right, with a momchit sound. The light gray-haired man stands, appearing pensive, with a soft suck sound. A close-up shows the light gray-haired man's hands clenching with a JJAM sound. Hyangdan responds with a thoughtful expression. Well, I guess so. The chief constable solemnly reassures the light gray-haired man that he will ensure the culprit is caught. The older woman with gray hair and Chunhyang walk with soft footstep sounds, expressing gratitude for his words. Hyangdan looks startled and flustered as the light gray-haired man addresses her by name. The older woman with gray hair embraces Hyangdan tightly, looking relieved. Hyangdan looks wide-eyed and shocked while being hugged by the older woman with gray hair. Still in the embrace, Hyangdan affirms she is okay, thanking her master for protecting her. The older woman with gray hair and Hyangdan share a heartfelt hug in a lush outdoor setting. The older woman with gray hair's hands hesitate on Hyangdan's back during their embrace. The older woman with gray hair gently holds Hyangdan's back with a soft JJAM sound. The chief constable, a man in a black hat, points his finger, looking sternly at a partially visible Hyangdan. The chief constable looks surprised as a hand in a red sleeve, belonging to the light gray-haired man, gestures, stating, "Okay, let them go home today." The light gray-haired man, wearing a black hat, smiles faintly and suggests the chief constable will remember better when you're sober. The light gray-haired man continues to prompt, asking, "Don't you think?" The chief constable, looking resigned, confirms, "That's right." A light blue ceramic pot shatters on the floor with a tang sound, indicating a sudden outburst of anger. A bandaged man in a white robe kneels at a low table, wildly gesturing and exclaiming in frustration, "You can't even get rid of one little girl!" The bandaged man points angrily, his face contorted in rage, emphasizing his furious outburst. The bandaged man bows deeply to the floor, apologizing profusely with a numjuk sound, while a brown-haired person sits behind him. An unseen speaker yells, "Shut up," as a hand trembles with a teal-teal sound on a table, while the bandaged man thinks he was sure she'd be tiger food. A man with a black hat, possibly a superior, looks absolutely furious, demanding, "How dare you say that," when she's walking around perfectly fine. A fractured speech bubble conveys extreme anger, exclaiming, "You should have at least made it so that she couldn't run wild in the future." A white, fractured silhouette stands against a dark, cracked background with red lines, symbolizing a shattered state or severe consequences. Three individuals kneel submissively as an unseen speaker demands enough, while one promises, "I will make sure not to make any mistakes next time." The bandaged man, looking thoughtful and frustrated, sighs, questioning, "Why should I trust and use you again when you are bound to fail?" A close-up shows the light gray-haired man's hand holding another's, as a thought bubble reveals, "I wish that magistrate hadn't come back either." From an overhead perspective, the bandaged man sits before his kneeling subordinates, thinking with a JJAK sound that guy in the tavern are not going as planned. They are such a nuisance. A low-angle shot of an open door reveals a shoe inside, while an ominous thought bubble states, "Since it has come to this, a light ray from an open door illuminates a floor," and an unseen voice ominously thinks, "I'll have to use a more certain method next time." A credits page lists the creative team members for writer, script, art, color, assistance, PD, supervision, and production, along with copyright information. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, walks through a doorway carrying a tray, announcing her return home. Chunhyang, the dark-haired woman, leaps towards Hyangdan with open arms, expressing her intense worry about Hyangdan not coming back. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks shocked as Chunhyang asks if anything happened or if she encountered any strange people. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks wide-eyed and worried as a thought bubble explains that everyone is on high alert due to past events, followed by an exclamation of, "Oh no." A person tumbles to the ground, indicating a sudden fall. Chunhyang, the dark-haired woman, has landed on top of Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, and insists she isn't that late. A foot splashes into water with a splash sound next to a woven basket, as Hyangdan's eye looks startled and a bubble says, "Yeah." The light gray-haired man with red eyes and a wide hat stands with a stoic expression, holding a part of his robe, while another small figure carries a basket nearby. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks startled, and Chunhyang, the dark-haired woman, covers her mouth in surprise, asking what brings him here. Chunhyang, the dark-haired woman, helps Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, stand up, and the light gray-haired man assures them nothing happened. The light gray-haired man sits on a bench, looking relieved, a soft pulsic sound indicating his settling. Chunhyang, the dark-haired woman, joyfully embraces Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, asking if there's anything else he needs, surrounded by hearts. The light gray-haired man confirms he has another reason for his visit, causing Chunhyang to gasp and excitedly ask if he has business with Hyangdan. The light gray-haired man's hand rests on Hyangdan, the green-haired woman's, shoulder as he affirms she is the only one he can ask, leaving Hyangdan looking surprised. The light gray-haired man sits beside Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, who smiles slightly and asks what he wants, a soft pulsuk sound accompanying his settling. A close-up shows two pairs of feet, one wearing black shoes and the other white, dangling. A traditional building stands beside a bridge over water, bathed in sunlight. A man and woman stand on a bridge, and the man thinks it might be dangerous at night without safety measures. Birds soar around a man and woman on a bridge, as the man explains he considered installing a railing but faced strong opposition. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks at the light gray-haired man, questioning, "So?" with a curious expression. The light gray-haired man, blushing slightly, explains he needs to understand the opposition to the railing and asks if Hyangdan would accompany him to investigate. A thought bubble above the light gray-haired man notes the unusual nature of opposing safety measures. The light gray-haired man and Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, sit side by side on a bench, looking at each other. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks contemplative as she realizes that Mongryong and Chunhyang also dated at Ojakyo, with chibi versions of them appearing in her thoughts. Hyangdan, with chibi versions of the light gray-haired man and Chunhyang on her head, thoughtfully agrees, "Okay, I'll help you." The light gray-haired man's ear blushes as he thinks, "I'm relieved that you'll help me." Hyangdan and a dark-haired woman kneel in a field, harvesting plants, as the dark-haired woman asks, "Did something happen?" "Yes," he asked me very politely. The dark-haired woman, smiling, tells Hyangdan that considering the magistrate saved me last time, he doesn't seem like a bad person, to which Hyangdan asks, "Is that so?" A past scene or flashback shows the light gray-haired man carrying Hyangdan deeper into a cave. A close-up of the sleeping light gray-haired man as a thought bubble begins. "I think he's more..." Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, finishes the thought with a smile, saying just a bit strange. Hyangdan and the dark-haired woman continue working in the field, And the dark-haired woman responds, "Really?" That's a relief. The dark-haired woman smiles softly, thinking, "My brother-in-law said he was a fool, but that can't be true." Hyangdan looks surprised and asks, with a myeomchit sound, "Your brother-in-law?" The dark-haired woman smiles at Hyangdan, explaining that her brother-in-law complains about everything, so I didn't believe him. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks shocked, wondering about the man's identity. A man in a dark hat stands with his back turned, thinking he works at the government office, and Hyangdan has likely encountered him. The man in the dark hat is revealed to be a dark-haired man with a mustache, thinking his brother-in-law, Nolbu, is the town clerk. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, sighs audibly with a ha sound, her mouth open in thought. The dark-haired woman sits attentively, her expression gentle and observing. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, laughs nervously to herself, realizing she cannot tell Chunhyang, and expresses a secret thought. A close-up shows a hand clutching fabric as Hyangdan's internal monologue questions if Nolbu is the same character from the folktale. Two shadowed figures stand against a night sky as a thought bubble reveals that Nolbu in the folktale was not a magistrate. A stern-looking man in a black hat is shown, as a thought bubble questions if this is truly the Chunhyangdyeon story. A chibi Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks completely overwhelmed, shouting in frustration and declaring herself done with the confusion. The dark-haired woman smiles brightly, asking Hyangdan if she wants the mirror and offering to fetch it. A hand reaches for a mirror, hesitating with a soft suk sound as a thought bubble says wait in Korean. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks wide-eyed and worried, asking why. Chunhyang, the dark-haired woman, looks at Hyangdan with a surprised and blushing expression, demanding to know why she is dressed up. Chunhyang, the dark-haired woman, explains joyfully that today is an important day, while Hyangdan, looking confused, thinks it's not special. Chunhyang, the dark-haired woman, leans in assertively, questioning if Hyangdan knows the significance of a man and a woman crossing Ojakyo Bridge together. Chunhyang, the dark-haired woman, points her finger, explaining that people pray for the beautiful love of Gyeonwoo and Jigno, but Hyangdan thinks those two only cause trouble while dating. Chunhyang, the dark-haired woman, smiles gently, stating she will work with the magistrate. A chibi Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks surprised as Chunhyang happily wishes her a good trip. An unseen speaker, likely Chunhyang, encourages Hyangdan to hurry, reminding her the magistrate is waiting and promising thanks later. A chibi Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, sits on the ground looking annoyed. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks frustrated, pulling at her skirt and expressing disbelief. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, sighs and looks upwards with a pensive expression. A close-up shows a footstepping with a jockbox sound, as a thought bubble questions the importance of the Gyeonwoo and Juknyeo story. Under a full moon, a bridge spans across water towards traditional buildings, as a thought bubble expresses confusion about everyone's excitement for the story. This image displays the creative team and copyright information for the production. A man and woman from a folktale walk hand in hand through a magical landscape of clouds and floating islands. Two hands reach across the sky, one with a ring, as a thought bubble reveals their love was forbidden. Shadowy birds symbolize the forbidden love and the magpie bridge that forms as the man and woman meet below. Abstract white lines against a blue sky represent the legendary bridge on which the story is based. A luminous circle, the full moon, shines over the iconic Ojakyo Bridge at Gwanghalu, with floating lanterns. The tranquil scenery of Gwanghalu is depicted with its traditional buildings, a bridge over water, and floating lanterns under a clear sky. The light gray-haired man's shoes tap on the ground as he wonders why Hyangdan is so late. The light gray-haired man stands alone in the garden at night, wondering if he arrived too early. The light gray-haired man thinks he did not set an exact time, then hears someone call his name, "Master!" Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, apologizes for her lateness and asks if he has been waiting long. The light gray-haired man blushes intensely, looking flustered, as an unseen voice asks if he is all right. The light gray-haired man, still blushing slightly, stutters a greeting to Hyangdan, who looks at him quizzically. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks down and again apologizes for keeping him waiting. A close-up of Hyangdan's eyes shows her looking worried, with her thoughts unexpressed. The light gray-haired man, looking surprised and blushing, asks Hyangdan if she is listening, to which she quickly replies, "Of course." A vibrant blue field with streaking white lines creates a moment of transition and reflection. The light gray-haired man, with a slight smile, notes the late hour and urges Hyangdan to hurry before it gets even later. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, looks concerned, holding her hanbok dress. An aerial view shows several people walking on the Ojakyo Bridge at night, illuminated by floating lanterns and moonlight. Lush tree branches frame the serene view of the bridge and water, bathed in soft light. Hyangdan, the green-haired woman, turns to the light gray-haired man, confirming his intention to install a railing on Ojakyo Bridge. The light gray-haired man sighs and asks Hyangdan for her opinion on his plan to install a railing on the bridge. Hyangdan states the bridge does not seem dangerous, while the light gray-haired man warns her to be careful. Hyangdan observes that while the bridge might be dangerous on a dark night, it is perfectly fine with the moon bright tonight. The light gray-haired man emphasizes the need to build a railing for the bridge, his head shaking lightly. The light gray-haired man explains to Hyangdan that the full moon does not appear every day. Hyangdan thinks about the present night's beautiful scenery. Bubbles rise from the water, and the light gray-haired man asks what is happening as a bright light shines. A fish splashes from the water, saying adios before falling back in, startling Hyangdan, who looks confused. The light gray-haired man asks Hyangdan if she is hurt. Reaching out his hand to help her, a close-up shows their hands meeting. The light, gray-haired man holds Hyangdan, who looks surprised and slightly scared, as they stand on the bridge.